Can I start, sir? Okay. So we were discussing the revolt of 1857. I was giving an overview, a bird's eye view. Now regarding the mutiny, I told you the immediate reason was the introduction of a rifle by the British, what is called Pattern 1853 Enfield rifle musket. Enfield rifle musket. In short, called the Enfield rifle. In short, called the Enfield rifle. The British introduced this rifle in the Bengal army first. It replaced the Brown Bess. Earlier there was a rifle called Brown Bess. The British withdrew that rifle, Brown Bess, and introduced the Enfield rifle, which took the place of the Brown Bess. And across a range of 250 to 300 meters, 250 to 300 yards rather, this was a deadly weapon. You take aim and shoot, it will go and hit that bullseye. Now there was a peculiar method through which this rifle was loaded. What was the method? No, it was a machine, it was a weapon of those days. Only one bullet it used to discharge at a time. Once a dumb month, one day bullet per. So you have the rifle, it was a heavy rifle, and it contained a cartridge. It had a cartridge in which you have a bullet inside the cartridge along with the gunpowder. And that cartridge was covered in a paper foil. It was covered in a paper foil. It contained the bullet and the gunpowder. And that paper foil was covered with lard and tallow. Lard is pig fat and tallow is cow fat. Okay, it was covered with lard and tallow, cow and pig fat. Now what the sepoy was supposed to do is, it was a heavy rifle, mind you. He was supposed to kneel down on one of his knees like this, hold the rifle in his one hand, with his teeth tear the cartridge paper, and then pour the gunpowder into the nozzle of the rifle, and then place the bullet, and then he had a stick. It came with a stick. The rifle had a stick. He is supposed to shove the bullet along with the gunpowder into the deep recesses of the musket, and then he will lock the rifle and use it. That's how it was supposed to be used. And the sepoys were very happy with this rifle because it was a sure shot. When you take aim and fire, it will go and hit the target. Better than the Brown Bess. What they did not know was that it was smeared with cow and pig fat. Okay. Now, I told you within the British Indian Army you have discrimination on the basis of religion as well as caste. Upper caste sepoy is supposed to have insulted a lower caste sepoy. An upper caste sepoy, Brahmin sepoy, is supposed to have insulted a lower caste sepoy as regarding his caste. That's the time when the lower caste sepoy is supposed to have told, what is so big deal? What is the big deal about your caste? You have already lost your purity. You have already lost your purity because every day you are tearing the cartridge paper which is smeared with cow and pig fat. And that fellow's religious sentiments was deeply hurt. Okay. And this lower caste sepoy told him, come, I'll show you where it is made, where the fat is made. Pig and cow fat is made. And he took him and showed him in a section of the city of Bengal where it was made. Locally available, locally made. And the news spread like wildfire. Now, in Islam, even touching a pig is haram. It is against the religion. Muslims don't eat pork. Okay? They are not even supposed to touch it. And for a Hindu, cow is supposedly very sacred. Indeed, a Hindu is not supposed to eat a cow. Okay, beef. He doesn't eat beef. And a Muslim doesn't eat pork. But a Christian eats both. A Christian eats both. He eats pork as well as beef. So this particular development was viewed by the sepoys as an ingenious method on the part of the British to convert us to Christianity. Hello, did you understand? They are trying to convert us indirectly to Christianity by making us taste or smear, tearing the cover of the paper, which was covered with cow and pig fat. That's why S.N. Sen, there's a historian called S.N. Sen, who wrote a book called 1857. In that book he says, what began as a war of religion ended as a war of independence. What began as a war of religion, that is, what began as a war in defense of religion, ended as a war of independence. Anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಯಾರು S.N. Sen. Okay. So here both the Hindus and the Muslims refused to use the rifle, creating a mutinous situation, rebellious situation. Okay. And of course, you have the Mangal Pandey episode, when Mangal Pandey of the 34th Native Infantry at Barakpur in Bengal, 34th Native Infantry, Barakpur, posted in Bengal at a place called Barakpur. He was asked to use the Enfield rifle. He was a Brahmin, Pandey, Mangal Pandey. He attacked this British officer and wounded him grievously, including the adjutant of that officer, Lieutenant Bogg. He was wounded. He was court-martialed and hanged. Court-martial andre, there is a separate court for the soldiers, military soldiers. So in the military court, he was court-martialed and he was hanged. And then you have the 7th Awadh Regiment. It refused to use the cartridges. So here on the 10th of December, on the 10th of December, the revolt 1857. So May 7th, May 10th. On May the 10th, 1857, the revolt broke out at Meerut. Where is it, Meerut? In UP. The revolt broke out at Meerut. Okay. The officers, they took control of the battalion at Meerut, and overnight they marched to Delhi. Ratri, they have marched to Delhi. And on May 11th, they came to Delhi. Who was the emperor, Mughal emperor? Bahadur Shah II, or Bahadur Shah Zafar. He was 70+ year old. Aವಾಗ ತಾನೇ ಎದ್ದಿದ್ದ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ. Okay, that fellow was sleeping early morning. These people have come and they are shouting slogans at him, for him, in praise of him. Shahenshah Hindustan, you are our leader. Emperor of India, you are our leader ಅಂತ ಕೂಗ್ತಾವ್ರೆ. And that fellow had heard this slogan after many years. Shahenshah ಕರಿತಾವ್ರೆ ಅಂತ. Fellow comes out, he saw these soldiers and he refused to become their leader. But even then, those soldiers said, whether you agree or not, you are our leader. They made him their leader. A reluctant Bahadur Shah agreed to become the leader of the sepoys. And from Meerut it spread to Delhi, from Delhi it spread to major parts of North India. And many times you have the soldiers, people of this nearby towns and villages, they took control of those towns. When they heard that in a neighboring town, sepoys had revolted, they revolted against their zamindars or local rajas, and they took control of the town or city, and it spread like wildfire. Okay, this is the sepoy mutiny. Immediate reason is the so-called cartridge affair. And major parts of North, Central and Western India were affected. Okay, South India was marginally affected. It approved British authority in many areas. The British were seasoned officers, they were all experienced soldiers and officers. They quickly regrouped. They called in reinforcements from Crimea. You have a British Indian army sent to Crimea to fight the Crimean War, 1854-56. So they called in reinforcements from there. They called in soldiers from other cantonments, and they were able to reconquer Delhi. Bahadur Shah Zafar his sons and grandson were shot dead. He was blamed for the mutiny. Okay, and since he was their leader, he was sent away to Burma, Myanmar. Okay, and one by one, all the leaders were killed or defeated, imprisoned, and the company rule came to an end, and we have the Queen's Proclamation. 1858, Queen Victoria made a proclamation according to which the rule of the company was ended. They ended the rule of the company, and the British government British Parliament took over the direct administration of India in its hands. Okay, and they brought about changes in all aspects of British rule in India: administration, central, provincial, district, local, police, civil services, judiciary, education, local self-government. In all these areas, they brought changes, the British. This is the Sepoy Mutiny. We'll talk about it, okay? Amal Manana. Adamale, Indian National Movement. Indian National Movement, most important part of your modern India syllabus is Indian National Movement. I will take more time for this. We will talk about the pre-Congress associations or organizations. What are the reasons for the birth of nationalism amongst the Indians? What is nationalism? Nationalism andre enre? That sentiment, that feeling that we all belong to one nation. Now Bharatiyaru, this is our country, we belong to one nation. That was not there when the Sepoy Mutiny took place in 1857. But after 1857, particularly from 1870 onwards, we have slowly the feeling of nationalism germinating amongst the Indians, that we all belong to one country. We are Indians, Anta. Okay? So before we have what is called pre-Congress associations or organizations. They were catering to certain regional or sectional interests, like Bengal British India Society, Madras Native Association, Bombay Presidency Association, Zamindari Association, catering to only to the interests of zamindars. Bombay Presidency Association, looking into the problems of only Bombay Presidency. Madras Native Association, looking into the problems of only the citizens of Madras, only the people of Madras Presidency. Like that we had, before the Congress was established, we had pre-Congress associations or organizations, okay, catering to only certain regional or sectional interests. What happened? No, I will not encourage that. Is it an emergency? Huh? Office call. Okay, fine. But still, avoid. Agata, agala. Avoid manake. Right. Sorry. As far as you don't disturb others, I'll allow you. Don't worry. It's better to be you be in the class than outside the class. So okay, fine. But as far as you're not disturbing others, it's fine. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಹಿಂದೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಬಿಡಿ, so that nobody you are not disturbing others. Okay, fine. So here we had pre-Congress associations or organizations. Then we have something called the Indian National Conference, which was established by Surendranath Banerjee. Indian National Conference, which is considered to be a precursor of the Congress, just before the Congress was established. And then we have a British civil servant, retired civil servant called A.O. Hume. A.O. Hume, who established the Indian National Union. Indian National Union, which came to be called the Indian National Congress later. Okay, Indian National Congress was given, the name was given by Dadabhai Naoroji. A.O. Hume called it as Indian National Union Anta. So we will study about what is called various theories regarding the establishment of the Congress. There are various theories as regards the establishment of the Congress. Most popular theory is the safety valve theory. Safety valve theory. We'll talk about what is safety valve theory. Okay, apart from other theories as to why the Congress was established. Okay, safety valve theory. Then we'll also look at the aims and objectives of the Congress. Why was the Congress established? Aims and objectives of the Congress. Okay. Then we will look at the three phases of the freedom struggle. You see, Indian national movement or freedom struggle is divided into three phases. 1885 to 1905, the moderate phase. What is called the moderate phase. Moderate phase. Okay, then 1906 to 1919, extremist phase or neo-nationalist era. Neo-nationalist era. And then we have 1920 to 47. 1920 to 1947, Gandhian era. Gandhian era. So 1885 to 1905, moderate phase. Who are these moderate leaders? Dadabhai Nauroji, Badruddin Tyabji, Surendranath Banerjee, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji, etc., etc. Okay, they were called the moderates. What were the aims of the moderates? What were their aims? What were their demands? And what was the social base of the Congress during the moderate phase? In these 20 years, what was the aim of the Congress or aims of the Congress? What were the demands of the moderate leaders? What was the social base of the Congress? What were their achievements? What are the achievements of the moderates? Similarly, what are the failures of the moderates? What were their failures? We will study like this. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಸೊ moderates ಯಾರು? ಮಂದಗಾಮಿಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಮಂದಗಾಮಿಗಳು, moderate phase. What were the aims of the moderates? What did they try to achieve? What were their aims? What are the demands of the moderates? What was their social base? That is, who supported the moderates? And then what are their achievements? In these 20 years, what did they achieve? Similarly, what are the failures? Okay? Then we come to the extremist era or neo-nationalist era. We have the extremist leaders. Lal Bal Pal, famous Lal Bal Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, Pal Gangadhar Tilak, famous. And before them we have other people. Aurobindo Ghosh, Vishnu Shastri Chiplankar, Raj Narayan Bose, Ashwini Kumar Datta, ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ನ್ಯೂ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮಿಸ್ಟ್ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್. ಅವರ ಏಮ್ಸ್ ಏನು? ವಾಟ್ ವೇರ್ ದ ಏಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮಿಸ್ಟ್ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್? What were their demands? What was the social base of the Congress during the extremist era? What are the achievements of the extremists? What are their failures? Clear? And then during the first till about 1920, we have some movements which took place. Swadeshi movement. We'll be discussing what is this Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi movement, home rule movement. Home rule movement. ಏನರಪ್ಪ ಸ್ವದೇಶಿ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು? ಅದರ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನಿತ್ತು? what were the aims of the Swadeshi movement? Okay, then achievements, Swadeshi movement. Then home rule movement. What was this home rule movement? We'll talk about it. Then we have the Gandhi coming back. Mahatma Gandhi. He had gone to South Africa for 1 year. 1893 he had gone there. At the age of 22-23, South Africa. Okay, his grandfather was a Diwan. Diwan means Prime Minister. His father was also a Diwan. Okay, at the age of 13 years, Gandhi was married. Mohan anta avaru hesaru. Mohan Das Karamchand Gandhi, M.K. Gandhi, to a girl of the same age, Kasturbai anta. Kasturbai. Gandhi avardu early experiments ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Interesting. 13 years he was married. Okay. When he was in 10th standard, his father died. When he was doing his SSLC, his father died. Right. Then at the age of 18, after he finishes intermediate ಅಂದರೆ 1 ವರ್ಷ PUC. Nowadays we have 2 years PUC, no? After 10th standard, 2 years PUC. Then you go to degree. Those days, after 10th standard, you have 1 year intermediate, PUC. He finishes PUC, intermediate, 1 year. Then the family decided that he should uphold the family prestige, uphold the family name. Why? Grandfather Divanu, Tande Divanu. Even law ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. He should be sent to England for a course in law. If he does, he becomes a lawyer, barrister, then he will be able to uphold the family prestige. So the family decided to send him to England for a 3-year course in law. Gandhi was just 18, and just as he boarded the ship bound for London, he had become a father of a child. 18 ವರ್ಷ ಅಪ್ಪ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಗಾಂಧಿ. Kasturbai gave him a baby. And Gandhi boarded the ship bound for London. 3-year law course. First 4 months, he spent most of his time roaming around London. Okay, suddenly from Gujarat to London. Okay. He's never seen. Hattu, kotu, buttu, sutu, akondo. He was enamored of the British culture, Western culture. So he got himself a three-piece suit stitched with a felt hat. He learned ballroom dancing. Okay, 3 months he did. If some villager comes to Bangalore, what will he do? Starting, he'll be roaming around MG Road, Brigade Road, Kaban Park, Atara. And later he lost interest. After 3-4 months, he lost interest, began to focus his attention on his studies. Okay, read other books on the Gita, books on Bhagavad Gita, English rendering, translation of the Gita, the Sermon on the Mount, Bible. Okay, then about Allah, Prophet Muhammad, he read books on that, and about Buddhism, Buddha, The Light of Asia by Edwin Arnold. Like that, he read many books. 3 years he finished his law course. He was called to the bar. Bar andre practice manak ba anta. Neevu ankondirodalla. Okay, he was called to the bar. That means you are now a advocate. You can come and practice. The next day he boarded the ship for India. Okay, and he opened a small office in Bombay. 6 months nobody came to him. He failed as a lawyer. Gandhi. How he failed, I'll tell you later, details. And so he came back to Rajkot and he was doing some clerical job for about a year. He was already a father. He had to take care of his family, wife and child. And then you have a South African company, Abdullah Seth and Company. Abdullah Seth and Company, which had business interests in South Africa. There was a senior lawyer there of the company, and that senior lawyer wanted a junior to help him. And Gandhi was a barrister at law from London on paper. Iವರು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಕಂಪನಿಗೆ ಇವನು ಫೇಲಿಯರ್ ಅಂತ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸಲ್ಲಿ ಫೇಲಿಯರು, ಬಟ್ ಥಿಯರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಸು. They offered the job to him. It was a 1-year contract. And Gandhi decided, let me go to South Africa for 1 year. Let me collect some money, okay, save up some money and then come back. And then let me see how life turns out. So he decided to go to South Africa. He went alone, leaving behind his family. Okay, 1893, he stayed in South Africa. He landed in Durban in South Africa. And something happened while he was going on a train. Okay, that was a turning point in Gandhi's life. I'll tell you later about it. He finished 1 year. There was a send-off for him. He was supposed to come back to India. But the Indian merchants and people living there who were giving him a send-off requested Gandhi, you please stay back, sir. You guide us. You are an advocate. I'll require $300 to maintain myself and my family. Where will you get so much of money? Don't worry, sir. We will pay you your fees. You stay back. And Gandhi decided to stay back. And he stayed back for more than 20 years. He had gone for only 1 year. He went on to stay for more than 20 years. Until the age of about 44, he was there in South Africa. And then South Africa became a laboratory for Gandhi, where he tried out his techniques of ahimsa and satyagraha. Inno agattu South Africa dalli adra ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ. And at the age of 44, on the request of his political guru Gopalakrishna Gokhale, Gandhi came back. So he came back to India on January the 9th, 1915. And this day is celebrated as Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Pravasi Bharatiya, NRA Day. Okay? And then for 1 year, he did not take any political stand on any issue. He traveled around the country, mostly in third-class trains, to understand the problems of this country and the people of this country. And then we have the Champaran Satyagraha, the Ahmedabad mill strike, and the Kheda Satyagraha, the Rowlatt Satyagraha later, and then the non-cooperation movement, which was launched by Gandhi in 1920. We will discuss all these things. Gandhian era, Gandhian era, 1920 to 47, non-cooperation, Rowlatt Satyagraha, non-cooperation movement, okay, civil disobedience movement, 1930, the Dandi March, right? Then Quit India movement. These are all movements led by Mahatma Gandhi. Right? We also will discuss about revolutionary terrorism. Youngsters like you people took to the cult of the bomb. Bomb besibeko, Britishharana kondakbeko, shoot ಮಾಡಿ ಸಾಯಿಸಬೇಕು, ಒದ್ದು ಓಡಿಸಬೇಕು. Cult of the bomb, violence, bloodshed. This is called revolutionary terrorism. So what are the reasons for the birth of revolutionary terrorism? We divided it into 2 or 3 phases. Okay? Only in the last phase come people like Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, etc. And we have a number of conspiracy cases, Meerut conspiracy case, Lahore conspiracy case, etc., etc. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? 1947 we have independence, which came along with partition. August the 14th, 1947, Pakistan was born. August the 15th, India was born. Okay? So we will look at the major movements, all those things, and the partition of India, and eventually the attainment of independence by our country. And of course, we have one more topic, miscellaneous akidi nodi, revolts, movements, tribal revolts, peasant revolts, okay? Labor movement, left union movements, leftist movements, peasant revolts, tribal revolts, trade union movement, leftist movements, ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ 1857, development of education before 1857 under the company, and once the British Crown Parliament took over the administration of India, what are the various changes brought about in the educational field, various committees established by the British, the Sadler Committee, the Woods Dispatch, etc., etc. We will just talk about that. The various governor generals and viceroys, okay, then constitutional history, charter acts, government of India acts, ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. Press, development of press, etc., etc. ಇದು modern Indian history. ಇದು ಪಕ್ಷಿ ನೋಟ ರೀ, ಆಯಿತಾ? ತುಂಬ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಫಾರ್ KS exam. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಶೂರ್ ಮೆನಿ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಮೈಟ್ ಬಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅಪಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ KS exam whenever the notification comes. ಆಯಿತಾ? This is the mother of all exams, UPSC. When you prepare for UPSC, it will help you to prepare by default for other exams also, because these papers are common: history, economy, geography, polity, okay, current affairs, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. So when you're preparing for a competitive exam, you have so many choices in a city like Bangalore for jobs, okay? Because you're all preparing for a job. You're not preparing for degree, you're not for a certificate, but for a job. Okay, so be very, very serious. There's a difference being in college when you're preparing for a degree, okay, to become a graduate or a postgraduate, and you're preparing for a competitive exam, you're preparing for a job. So be very, very serious, because that will determine you. What job you are will determine your standard of life. Okay, I'm not saying this is the only job available. I'm saying you have chosen to, take up this exam. So be very, very serious. Make it count. ಆಯಿತಾ? Distractions ತುಂಬ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ. Compared to my generation, you people have more distractions. Social media ಅಂತೆ ಏನೇನೋ ಇದೆ, ಆಯಿತಾ? So you be very disciplined. Okay, behave like an officer. Think as if you're already an officer, bureaucrat. And how does a bureaucrat behave? You behave like that. Okay, see that you value your time and your energy. Okay, ಎಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆನೂ ಮಿಂಗಲ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅವರು, ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಟೈಮ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆಯಿತಾ? ಸೊ ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರೀಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್, ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಫೋಕಸ್ಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟೆಡ್. ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಯೋರ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್, ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್, ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಡೋಂಟ್ ಕಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್, ಫ್ರಮ್ ಅದರ್ಸ್. ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್, ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಯೋರ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್, ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಯೋರ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಲೈಫ್, ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಯೋರ್ what you call studies, make it a lovely balance between study and social life. But see that whenever you take a break, that break will reinforce you, rejuvenate you, so that you come back more stronger. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ? ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡ್ಮೇಲೆ you should not come back dead and without any energy. Whatever you take, whatever you do, you should come back with renewed energy and vigor. ಆಯಿತಾ? So this is a challenge you have taken up. See that you make it count. Right? Fine. Any questions? Any doubts? Any feedback? The speed is okay? The speed of my talking is okay? Interesting ಇದೆಯಾ? ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಡ್ರಿ, ನಿಜ ಹೇಳಿ, ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದಂಗೆ ಹೇಳಿ. ಐ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಟಾಕ್. ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್, ಗುಡ್ ಆರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್, ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ನೋ. ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಲಿ ಐ ಮೇಕ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್, ಮೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್. ಏನಪ್ಪ, ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಕ್ಲಿಯರಾ? ಓಕೆ. So this is a book list I have suggested. This is only a suggestive book reading. Suggestive. I am suggesting it. If you find some other good book better than this, it's up to you. Only thing is, criteria should be that book should answer your questions, previous year questions, prelims and mains questions. Don't read guides. Read standard textbooks. Okay, if some material is very good, like an institute's material, if it is very good, then it is fine. You can use it for revision, etc. But first to textbook ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದ್ಬಿಡಿ. textbook ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ, if there is a study material, if there is any flaw or if that information is given is wrong, then you will be able to find out. If you're reading only the study material, then you might not know which is correct or which is wrong. The base should be your textbook, UPSC exam. Newspapers update ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Newspapers every day, 1 to 1.5 hours. Indian Express, okay, Hindu. So, be very discreet about it. Political news, page 3 news, okay, all those things you avoid. Only thing is what is relevant for the exam. Okay, that much. Okay. Right. ಇವಾಗ I had to call him, I think. Prashant Karyappa. Prashant Karyappa. I don't have a calling bell here. If I wasn't, I'll ask them for a calling bell. Thank you. Sir, next video, next trade akode. Bell ilva Prashant? Bell, calling bell.
ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಇಲ್ಲೊಬ್ರು ಇರ್ತಿದ್ರು ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಕಾಲಿಂಗ್ ಬೆಲ್ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ European companies and go for European companies. Sorry, ನಾನು ಓದ್ತಾ ಹೊಡೆದಾಗಿತ್ತಾ?
ಇಲ್ಲ
ಸೆಕೆ, ಒಳಗೆ ಚಳಿ, ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಚಳಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎ ಸಿ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಇದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ? ಅಯ್ಯ, ಇದು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು
ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಸರ್?
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಹಿಂದೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪೇಜ್ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಅದಾಗ ರೀಡ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ವಾ?
ಅವನಿಗೆ ಓದ್ತಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಅದು ಡೀಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು?
ಸರ್
ಇದೆ. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay. Right. Now let us talk about, let us go to the first chapter, European companies. Okay, European companies. Keli, all of you, look here. See this. From ancient times, India has had trade relations and diplomatic relations with the West. Okay. And basically there were three routes which the traders and merchants as well as ambassadors used to take between West and East. One is the Red Sea route. You know it, all of you, this is Africa, you can see here, this is India here, China is here of course, and Persia is Iran, ancient Iran. So this is the Mediterranean Sea, these are the European countries. Okay, let me see if just hold on. You see here, this is Europe, okay? Now, Europe, and this is India here. There were three routes between India and the Orient. Orient means countries in the Eastern Hemisphere. Countries of the Eastern Hemisphere, including India. One route which these people used to take is the Red Sea route. You see, this is Africa. Europeans will travel through the Mediterranean Sea. Then they will travel overland for some time. Okay, they will travel overland for some time, then enter the Red Sea. Like this, they'll come to India. This is called a Red Sea route. Okay. Second route which was there was the Persian Gulf route. Europeans will travel via the Mediterranean Sea. Then they will travel overland for some distance, and then they'll enter the Persian Gulf and then come to India. This is called Persian Gulf route. Red Sea route, Persian Gulf route. And then we have a third route, that is the overland route via Constantinople. Overland route via Constantinople. Constantinople is the old name of Istanbul in Turkey, present-day Turkey. Turkey, there is a place called Istanbul. In ancient times, it was called Constantinople. Now look here. First, Artha Madkodi. So from ancient times, India has had relations with Europe. Okay. For example, we have the Sangam age. We have something called the Sangam age. Look here. What is this Sangam age? For example, during the Sangam age, you see, we have not done ancient and medieval. Okay, you have not done ancient and medieval. That's why I have to tell you certain things about ancient also, wherever necessary. Or medieval, again, wherever necessary. So in ancient times, in South India, this is called the Deep South, there were three Tamil kingdoms. The Pandyas, the Cholas and the Cheras. Okay, that is Cholas, Pandyas and the Cheras. And we come to know about these three Tamil kingdoms from a literature which is called Sangam literature. Sangam literature. What is Sangam literature, etc., I will not speak about that now. The concerned teacher will speak about it. But during the Sangam, this is called Sangam age. Sangam literature is from around 300 BC to 300 AD. This is roughly the time period, 300 BC to 300 AD. So what is called the Sangam age. So during the Sangam age, we have three Tamil kingdoms existing in South India, Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas. And we have evidence of these Tamil kingdoms trading with even the Roman Empire. For example, we have a Pandyan king called Pandyan who sends an ambassador to Augustus Caesar of Rome. And Augustus Caesar of Rome, where is Rome? Italy. So Augustus Caesar of Rome also sent an ambassador to the Pandyan court. We have evidences. Okay. So during the Sangam age, we have India had diplomatic and trade relations with Roman Empire. Then Alexander came to India. When did Alexander come to India? 326 BC. Alexander comes to India in 326 BC. Alexander, he wanted to conquer the entire earth. Alexander, he came to India when? 326 BC. And Alexander was a person who belonged to Greece. He was the king of a place called Macedonia in Greece. And we know just before the Mauryan Empire was established, Just before the Mauryan Empire was established, Alexander had come to the borders of India, conquering everything on the way. So how did Alexander come? How to? Alexander came via the same route, this one. He came like this, overland route, winning everything on the way. He also conquered Persia, Iran, and he came up to the river Bias. And there was a rebellion and he was forced to go back. So Alexander had come in ancient times. Okay? And in medieval times, Arabs acted as intermediaries. Why did the Europeans come first of all? Yenak bandro? They came to India from ancient times to pick up spices and cotton textiles. They came to India to pick up spices and cotton textiles. In medieval times, what happened is, the Arabs used to act as intermediaries in this trade between India and the West. Arabs ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು? Arabs, they used to come to India, they'll come to Kerala, they'll pick up spices. Okay, or they'll go to other parts of South India, like the Pandyan kingdom. Okay, or they'll pick up cotton textiles. And they will go to Europe like this, either to the Red Sea route or the Persian Gulf route, and they will sell it to the Italian merchants. Right? So, from ancient times, India has had relations with Europe. Okay, from Sangam age, Alexander's visit, and of course, medieval times, Arabs acted as intermediaries. What were the three main routes between India and the West? Red Sea route, I am writing Red Sea route, Persian Gulf route, and overland route via Constantinople. Barkondijanapa. Overland route via Constantinople. Okay. Now look here. Now these are the main exports from India and the Orient. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, ginger, cotton textiles like muslins and calicos and silk. These are the main exports. Silk, they used to pick it up from China, Arabs, and they used to take it to Europe, Arabs. From India and other parts of Southeast Asia like Indonesia, they used to pick up spices and cotton textiles. Iವಾಗ ತನಕ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? Hello? So three main routes ittu. Then something happens. What happened? I'll tell you. Look here. We have a slightly digressing, and understand this, just to make you understand. We have the birth of Islam. Who is the founder of Islam? Prophet Muhammad. Very good. Prophet Muhammad. And when was Islam founded? Anybody?
1600.
Huh? What's your name? Maurice. Islam ಯಾವಾಗಪ್ಪ?
1600.
ತುಂಬ ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗೋಯ್ತದೆ ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ 1600 ಅಂತ. It is, Islam was born in 7th century AD. Exact date would be 622. Birth of Islam. ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಧರ್ಮನ ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆ ಮಾಡಿದವರು ಯಾರಪ್ಪ? ಮೊಹಮ್ಮದ್ ಪೈಗಂಬರ್, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಫೆಟ್ ಮೊಹಮ್ಮದ್. Okay. Now, Islam was born in the southwest portion of the Arabian Peninsula. It was born in the southwest portion of the Arabian Peninsula, and in course of time, Islam spread rapidly. Entire Arabian Peninsula came to be Islamized. Understand these words. It came to be Islamized. Andre ಏನು Islamized andre? People began to convert themselves to Islam. Okay? There were many tribal religions there in that area. People left those tribal religions and they began to follow Islam. So entire Arabian Peninsula became Islamized. Now Prophet Muhammad died. Prophet Muhammad sathogbidtare. After he died, we have the Caliph who became the head of Islam. caliph or Khalifa. Caliph or Khalifa became the head of Islam. So he became their leader, political and religious leader. Political and religious leader. So people considered the Khalifa as the representative of Prophet Muhammad. Like for example, we have the Pope, who is where does the Pope sit? Vatican. Where is Vatican? Rome, Italy. And the Pope is the head of which sect of Christianity? Roman Catholics. Roman Catholics considered the Pope as the representative of Lord Jesus Christ on this earth. Adhe riti, Khalifa was considered to be the representative of Prophet Muhammad on this earth. Under their leader, the Khalifa, the Arabs had three main aims. Under their leader, the Khalifa, the Arabs had three main aims. What are the three main aims of the Arabs? Three aims of the Arabs under their leader, Khalifa. Number one, to spread Islam. To spread Islam to new areas, to new lands. Barkotairapa, write down. Okay. Keep writing down. Light hakalrapale. Where is the light there? Put on the light there. Light ilvalri alde. Yaಕೆ ಕತ್ಲ ಕೂತಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ಲೈಟ್ ಇಲ್ವಲ್ಲಿ? ಹಾಕಪ್ಪ ಲೈಟು. ವೈ ಆರ್ ಯು ಸಿಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಡಾರ್ಕ್? ಕಿಟಕಿ ಮುಚ್ಚಪ್ಪ ಅದು. ಕಿಟಕಿ ಮುಚ್ಚೋದನ್ನ. ಹಾಂ, ಲೈಟ್ ಹಾಕ ರಾಜ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಟ್ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಹಾಕು ಲೈಟು. ಆ ಕಡೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಲೈಟ್ ಹಾಕಲ್ರಪ್ಪ. ಪುಟ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಲೈಟ್. ಈಗ ಬಾಗಿಲು ಮುಚ್ಚಪ್ಪ. ಅದು ಯಾರು ಬಾಗಿಲು ತಕ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು ಅದನ್ನು? ಹಾಂ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಡ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಕುಂತಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಈ ಥರ ಮಾತ್ರ. ಹಾಂ, ಇದಾಕಪ್ಪ ಇದು. ಹಾಂ, ಅವತ್ತು ಬಾ, ಇರಲಿ ಬಾ. ಡಬಲ್ ಹಾಕೋರು ಸ್ವಿಚ್ಚು. ಡಬಲ್ ಲೈಟ್. ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಿಚ್ಗೆ ಎರಡು ಲೈಟ್ ಹಾಕೋರು. ಬೆಳಕಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ಅದು ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಪ್ಪ. ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೆ ಯಾರಪ್ಪ? ಆ ಕಡೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಿಚ್ಚು. ಹ್ಞೂ, ನನಗೆ ಬೇಕಪ್ಪ. ಐ ಸ್ವೆಟಿಂಗ್. ಬೇಡ ಬಾರಪ್ಪ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ ಬಾ. ಹಾಂ ಹಾಂ. So the Arabs had three main aims under their leader Khalifa. One is to spread Islam to new areas. Number two, to conquer new lands. To conquer new lands. And number three, to expand trade. To expand trade. These are the three main aims of the Arabs under the leader, the Khalifa. To spread Islam to new lands, to expand trade, and to conquer new areas or new lands. And you have an aggressive Islam trying to penetrate into Europe. An aggressive Islam trying to penetrate into Europe. And European countries used to follow which religion? Christianity. And for them, their religion was great, Christianity. Islam is trying to spread into Europe. As a result, you have a certain amount of resistance. Europeans trying to prevent the spread of Islam into Europe. That led to clashes between the Muslims and the Christians. Christians and the Moors. Muslims ge Moors anta kariyoru. Moor. M-O-O-R. Moor. Mooralla. Moor. So you have clashes between the Christians and the Moors. Moors means Muslims. Sabro. Don't write Sabro. Okay, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಹೋಲಿ ವಾರ್, ಕ್ರೂಸೇಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Crusades. These are called crusades. Holy wars. Holy wars broke out between the Christians and the Muslims from 900 AD onwards, 9th century AD onwards. ಕ್ರಿಸ್ತ ಶಕ 9th century AD ಇಂದ ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Islam trying to prevent entry into Europe, and Europeans resisting the forward march of Islam into their areas. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಟಿಲ್ ನೋ ಕ್ಲಿಯರಾ? ಇವಾಗ ಕೇಳಿ. In the southeast portion of Europe, what are called the Balkans. Southeast portion of Europe andre Balkans anta karitive. That includes Turkey also. Southeast portion of Europe including Turkey. What is called Balkans. In the 13th century, a kingdom was born. A small kingdom was born. The person who founded this kingdom in the Balkans was Osman. His name was Osman. His ancestors were Turks. They came from Central Asia. In the medieval times, they had migrated to the Balkans. In the medieval times. In the 13th century, this fellow founded a small kingdom. He was a great warrior. Yaru Osman. He began to, and he followed Islamic religion, Muslim religion. And he was belonging to the Turkish race. Belonged to which race? Turkish race. Osman died. His successors also waged war against the neighboring kingdoms, and they began to conquer them one by one. So the kingdom established by Osman and his descendants came to be called as the Ottoman Kingdom, which later became an empire known as the Ottoman Empire. It was a military state, expanding at the cost of its neighbors. You have great rulers ruling this Ottoman Empire. Sultan Suleiman II, the Magnificent ಅಂತ ಅವನ ಹೆಸರು. Sultan Suleiman II, Muhammad II, ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ರೂಲರ್ಸ್ಗಳು. They were expanding the Ottoman Empire, waging war against the Christians. And these Ottoman emperors became the guardians of Islam. They became the guardians of Islam. They are safeguarding Islam, and they are fighting against the Christians. Aita, we have in the year 1453 an Ottoman Turkish Sultan called Muhammad II or Mehmed II. In 1453, this Ottoman Turkish Sultan, Muhammad II or Mehmed II, conquered Constantinople. He conquered Constantinople. When? In the year 1453. He defeated the Eastern Roman Emperor. He defeated the Eastern Roman Emperor, whose capital was Constantinople. Andre Constantinople andre ಈಗಿನ Istanbul in Turkey. And this was a turning point in the history of humanity. This was a turning point in the history of humanity. ಇವನು ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮು, Muhammad II, he has conquered the Eastern Roman Empire, capital Constantinople, by defeating the Christian emperor. Okay, and what did this fellow do? He blocked the 3 routes. 3 route block ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ. Red Sea route, Persian Gulf route, and the overland route via Constantinople. All these routes used to converge at Constantinople and diverge from there towards the Orient, towards the east. All the routes used to converge at Constantinople and diverge from there towards the east. And this fellow has blocked the 3 routes. Reason? Conflict between Christians and Muslims. Okay? So you see here. So this fellow has blocked the 3 routes. You know, capture of Constantinople in 1453. This area he has conquered, and he has blocked the 3 routes. Okay, Red Sea route, Persian Gulf route, overland route via Constantinople. Everything used to pass through this area. Europeans became desperate. क्या जे ऐसा कर दिया ऐसा ನಮಗೆ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ಆ ಕಡೆ 3 ರೂಟಲ್ಲಿ. We used to pick up spices and cotton textiles from India and the Orient. This fellow has blocked the 3 routes. What to do now? They became desperate. Europeans could not get their supply of spices and cotton textiles, particularly spices, and they became desperate. The question is, why did they become desperate? Why did the Europeans become desperate? You see, spices are grown only in some regions of the earth, not everywhere. Apples are grown only in some parts of the you require certain ecological geographical conditions ಅಲ್ವಾ ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು ಆ್ಯಪಲ್ಗೆ ಅವಾಗ ಆ್ಯಪಲ್ ಬೆಳೆಯುತ್ತೆ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸ್ಪೈಸಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಗ್ರೋನ್ ಇನ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಇಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಝೋನ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಗ್ರೋನ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಂಡೋನೇಷ್ಯಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೌತ್ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಏಷ್ಯಾ and in Europe, in many parts of Europe, out of 12 months you have snowfall for 6 to 8 months. You have snowfall for 6 to 8 months. You can't do agriculture throughout the year. You're forced to eat non-veg because you can't cultivate crops in that cold weather. So you're forced to eat non-veg. What the Europeans used to do is they used to bring masala, they used to bring spices from the Orient, and they used to smear the meat with spices. How does your mother preserve pickle? ಜಾಲ್ಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಉಪ್ಪು ಖಾರ no she puts spices and in oil it is dipped the pickle, otherwise it will get rotten in no time, isn't it? That's how you preserve pickle. It acts as a preservative. So they used to get spices from the Orient, India and other countries, and they used to make masala out of it, and they used to apply the masala on the meat, and they used to increase the shelf life of meat that way. Now they could not procure their spices. And very interestingly, many of these European countries had ice in their backyard, but they had not understood the benefit of refrigeration. You would just take some meat and cover it with ice, it will preserve. Okay, but they need not understand the benefit of refrigeration. They used to procure spices from the Orient, apply it on the meat and increase the shelf life of meat. They became desperate, and thus you have a desire on the part of the Europeans to found an alternative sea route to come to India and the Orient, triggering off the geographical discoveries. What if this fellow has blocked the 3 routes? We will find another route, all sea route. Nobody can stop us. Did you understand? समझ में आ गया ना? Hello, yes or no? Open, shake your head. अर्थ आया? So that resulted in the geographical discoveries. The desire on the part of the Europeans to found an all-sea route to India and the Orient. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 by the Ottoman Turkish Sultan Muhammad II triggered off the geographical discoveries when he blocked the 3 routes. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 by the Ottoman Turkish Sultan Muhammad II and the blocking of the erstwhile trade routes led to the geographical discoveries. Geographical discoveries means the desire on the part of the Europeans to found a separate sea route to India and the Orient. Desire on the part of the Europeans to found an alternative sea route to India and the Orient. Okay? Now, again slightly digress ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. Those days, the Portuguese and the Spanish, all the seafarers, Portuguese, the Dutch, the English, the French, etc., they used to use outdated ships. The design of the ships was defective. You see, when you have to discover new lands and continents, you require to go deep into the ocean. Okay, if you are hugging the coast and sailing very next to the coast, you cannot discover new lands and oceans, new lands and continents. Now the problem was that because of the defective ship design, they could not venture into the deep oceans because you have headwinds in the ocean. You have severe storms and headwinds. And what will happen is the ship should sail through the headwinds, slicing the headwinds into 2 parts, and then sail right through it. So because of the defective ship design, the ships could not withstand the headwinds and it used to collapse. This problem was solved by the Portuguese when they designed two new ships with a new design, the Caravel and the Galleon. Nodidu Caravel and the Galleon. Okay, these are new ship designs. Huh? Inga. Huh? Ida. Ida. Off Monica.
Second option is
This is ship designer. Okay. This is the Caravel. This is the Caravel and the Galleon. Now, with the help of these new ships, the Portuguese could sail into deep oceans. Even if there's a storm or a headwind, it will not result in the ship capsizing. It could sail right through them. And those days, they used to use primitive navigation instruments. We have the magnetic compass. This is the magnetic compass invented by the Chinese. The magnetic compass shows you the north and south directions. Who invented magnetic compass? Chinese. When you know north and south, it's not difficult to know which is east and west. So magnetic compass was taken to Europe by the Arabs, and they borrowed that technology from the Chinese, the Arabs. Arabs used to travel all around the world. Okay. Then we have the astrolabe. Astrolabe, you could know the height of the sun in the noon sky. Astrolabe. This is the astrolabe. You could know the height of the sun in the noon sky. And then you have the cross staff and the quadrant. Cross staff and the quadrant. Cross staff and the quadrant, from that you come to know the height of the star in the night sky. Astrolabe, height of the sun in the noon. Cross staff and quadrant, this is only for information, not important from the exam point of view. Cross staff and quadrant, you could know the height of the star in the night sky. And then it was Portugal and Spain who decided to found an all-sea route to India. You'll know all of you. So here, Ottoman, where is Turkey? Turkey is here, okay? That is the Constantinople. So here Ottoman Turkish Sultan has conquered Constantinople, and he has blocked the three routes. This is the Red Sea route, this is the Persian Gulf route, and the overland route via Constantinople. You have Portugal and Spain. You see, these are called the Iberian countries. You see, those days people did not know about America. People did not know that there's a continent called America. People did not know about Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand are here. You see, Australia is here, and then New Zealand is here. Okay, this is New Zealand. New Zealand. They did not know. Arctic, Antarctica out of the question. Greenland out of the question. People knew about Europe. European countries knew about Europe. They knew about North and Northwest Africa. Not interior Africa. Africa was considered to be a dark continent. They knew about Asia. Otherwise, major parts of the earth, they had no knowledge. Okay, did you understand? Now, these two countries, Portugal and Spain, were at the head of the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean is in front of them. They decided to found an all-sea route to India and the Orient. And it was Portugal who first took the initiative. Once those three routes were blocked. Portugal during those days was ruled by a king called Prince Henry the Navigator. Ready? Portugal. Idu Spain, idu Portugal. Portugal was ruled by this man, Prince Henry the Navigator, and this fellow opened a naval school at a place called Sagres in 1416. Artha ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ first, ಕತೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. 1416, everything is there in the PPT. It will be shared with you, don't worry. In 1416, you have this man, Prince Henry the Navigator, the king of Portugal, starting a naval school at Sagres in Portugal, where the sailors were trained or taught the skills of cartography. Cartography is reading the maps, deep sea navigation. Okay, they were trained in all these things. And every year, he used to finance a voyage. He used to finance a voyage. He'll send explorers, sailors, to found new lands or discover new islands. And here, you see here, they will sail like this. See, they will start from Portugal, hugging the West African coast, they will sail like this. Okay. Now, in 1488, Prince Henry the Navigator financed the voyage of a person called Bartholomew Dias. Bartholomew Dias. Bartholomew Dias came from Portugal like this, came to Guinea. Where is Guinea? Guinea is here. And then he comes to tip of Africa. Illi battane. Yaro? Bartholomew Dias. There was a severe storm in the ocean. In the Atlantic Ocean, South Atlantic Ocean, there is a severe storm. And he is not able to round off the Cape. He cannot sail around the Cape. So on his map, he named it as Cape of Storm. And he went back to Portugal. Okay, and you have a new king there, John II. Prince Henry the Navigator had died. John II was the new king. When John II came to know that this is what happened, he could not round off the Cape, and he had marked it as Cape of Storms. He struck off that. Adanna strike off madibidtane. John II, and he renamed that place as Cape of Good Hope. A hope for the future endeavor of the Portuguese in this direction. Okay, so even now that name remains, Cape of Good Hope anta. Aita, idu first attempt Portuguese madiddu. Second attempt ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಸ್ಪೇನ್. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ all of you. Spain, because I may be also doing world history. I'm telling you now only. World history ಮಾಡಿದಾಗೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ how America was discovered, I'll be telling you almost the same story. The next initiative was taken by Spain, the neighboring country of Portugal. Those days, Spain was ruled by a princess, queen. Her name was Isabella. Isabella, the queen of Spain. ಆಯಿತಾ, ಇಸಬೆಲ್ಲಾ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ಅಂತ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಅವಳು. ರೂಲ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟೈಲ್, ಸ್ಪೇನ್. She financed the voyage of a person called Columbus, Christopher Columbus. He was an Italian navigator in the service of Spain. ಇಟಲಿ ದೇಶದವನು ಅವನು, ಆದರೆ ಸ್ಪೇನ್ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ. And this man, Columbus, believed that the earth is round. Those days people did not know that the earth is round or flat. And he had all sorts of wonderful stories doing the rounds. That there comes a point where the earth ends, and suddenly there's a great precipice. Suddenly one doddu fall ideyante. If you go beyond that, you will fall down and you will never be found again. There are sea dragons and monsters who gobble up ships and sailors. Itra era stories irtittu. This man, Columbus, believed that the earth is round. And since the earth is round, if you travel about 10,000 kilometers, okay, you will be bound to come to the same spot because the earth is round. Did you understand? That's what he believed. And he took 3 ships. Columbus took 3 ships. Santa Maria, Nina and Pinta anta. Name of the ships, Santa Maria, Nina and Pinta. Financed by the Queen Isabella, he began to sail in a southwesterly direction. He wanted to go like this instead of coming like this. Like the Portuguese were going down east, he wanted to go west because he believed that the earth is round. And if he travels about 10,000 kilometers, he is bound to come to the same spot. And he thought on the way he will reach India. He'll bring spices and come back to Spain. So he began to travel, Yaro Columbus, in the Atlantic Ocean, in a southwesterly direction. After a few weeks of voyage in the Atlantic Ocean, he encountered a severe storm, Columbus. Okay, severe storm in the Atlantic Ocean. They lost course. They did not know where they were, and they lost consciousness. They were unconscious, his crew and himself. When he opened his eyes, luckily they were alive. The ships had not capsized. When he opened his eyes, the ships had come and touched land. Okay, Bahamas, one of the islands in the West Indies. Thus, in 1492, in trying to discover a new sea route to India, Columbus had accidentally discovered America. Columbus had accidentally discovered America. ಆಯಿತಾ, ಇವಾಗ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ I'll come back here. Again, Portugal makes the attempt. Now, Portuguese King John II sent Vasco da Gama. Okay? And Vasco da Gama retraced the route of Bartholomew Dias. He retraced the route. He comes up to the tip of Africa. There was no storm. He rounded off the Cape. He comes to Mozambique, and then Malindi, and then he comes to India. He was guided by an Arab merchant, navigator called Ahmad Ibn Majid. ಅವನು ಕರ್ಕೊಂಬರ್ತಾನೆ, ಬಾರಪ್ಪ ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ, ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡು ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು he takes him to India. And in 1498, Thus, Vasco da Gama landed at Calicut, discovering a new sea route called the Cape Route. He was received by the Hindu ruler of Calicut, the Zamorin, who had the title of Zamorin. This is how the Portuguese discovered the Cape Route. Illi nodi, all of you. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತದೆಯಾ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ. So ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ. So you have Bartholomew Dias. He came up to the tip of Africa. He called it as the Cape of Storms. Then it was renamed as Cape of Good Hope by John II. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ we have Christopher Columbus accidentally discovering America. And then on May the 17th, 1498, Vasco da Gama became the first European to reach India via the Atlantic Ocean. After circumnavigating Africa, he called this route as Cape Route. He was received by the Hindu ruler of Calicut, the Zamorin. Okay, and he was guided. So you see here, he comes like this. Vasco da Gama, Lisbon, Portugal, Guinea, tip of Africa, comes to Mozambique, Mombasa, Malindi, and he was guided to India, to Calicut. By whom? Ahmad ibn Majid. Ahmad ibn Majid. Okay, he was received by the Hindu ruler of Calicut, who had the title of Zamorin. Zamorin, received by the Hindu ruler of Calicut. Barkota jara, Hindu ruler of Calicut, who had the title of Zamorin. Title Zamorin, who had the title of Zamorin. Zamorin ಅವನನ್ನು ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಓಕೆ, thus was discovered the Cape Route. ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. We would like to trade in your state, in your kingdom. So he obtained permission to trade in spices in the city and set up a factory on the coast. So the Portuguese established their first factory at Calicut. Factory ಅಂದರೆ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿ ಆರ್ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್? ಯು ಸಿ ಹಿಯರ್, ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು. You see here, what is the meaning of a factory or a trading station? What is the meaning of a factory or trading station? What time is it? 11:30 ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಾ? 11:30. Okay. You want a break? 5 minutes break you want? Shall I continue? Yes or no? When you want a break, let me know. If you want a 5 minutes break. 2.5 hour class ಅಲ್ಲಿ 5 minutes break is okay. I can give you if you want to. Let me know. Free. ಯಾರೇ ಆಗಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ. I'll stop the class and you can take a break. 3 to 4 minutes break is fine. Okay, washroom break, etc. So, what is the meaning of a factory or a trading station? Factory ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು, some production is going on, smoke is coming out, there's a big chimney, there are hundreds and thousands of workers are working in that factory. Okay, something is being manufactured. That is not the meaning of factory or trading station of those days. Please understand, these people were Europeans. They came to trade in India. It was an alien land for them. And we look different from the Europeans. We are browns, they are whites. They were not very comfortable mingling with our people. Avreno, they wanted to keep to themselves. They wanted to keep to themselves. So what they did is, they'll have a separate area where they'll stay. Imagine this is a compound wall. There's a big compound wall. Inside this compound wall, there'll be a gate. Okay, there'll be a gate. They'll have their offices, trading offices. Then they'll have their godowns and they'll have their houses and they'll live here. Okay, they'll have a big gate here and they'll live here in this big compound. This is called a trading station or a factory. Nothing is manufactured there. They'll have whatever they buy or collect, it is stored in the godowns there. They'll have their offices and residential quarters there. Later these Europeans, Portuguese, Dutch, English, etc. began to interfere in the local politics. They began to interfere with the local rulers and their politics. And they got into conflict with the local rulers. So in order to feel themselves more secure, what they did is they built one fort around it. ನೋಡಿ, ದೊಡ್ಡ ಫೋರ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ್ರು. ಕೋಟೆ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ್ರು. Okay, then they kept cannons to defend themselves, and they kept weapons, guns and such things, so that they can defend themselves in a more effective manner. Okay, so initially they only had huge walls. Later they began to fortify it. Once they started interfering in the affairs of local rulers, and when the local rulers got angry, they also wanted to defend themselves and feel more secure among themselves. So here he established a factory. Okay, and then you have Portuguese were followed by the Dutch. Dutch were followed by the English, then the Danes, and finally the French. There's a sequential order in which these Europeans came to India. They followed the same route. Vasco da Gama had discovered this all-sea route, Cape route. They followed the same route. So they came to know about India, separate route to India, they began to come. Portuguese dominated the Indian Ocean for how many years? 100 years. They did not allow anybody to come to to the Indian Ocean, because they want to monopolize all the profits, all the trade for themselves. Then came the Dutch. Dutch weakened the Portuguese. Then came the British. They weakened the Dutch. Then came the Danes and then the French. The British defeated both the Dutch and the French. I've already told you this. This is a story. So here, second Portuguese to visit India was Pedro Alvarez Cabral, 1500. Pedro Alvarez Cabral. And then in 1500 AD, they established a company, Estado da India, Portuguese East India Company, Estado da India. It had monopoly of trade in spices and pepper. It had monopoly in trade, in spices and pepper. So this was a company established by the Portuguese. Nodri idu? Portuguese Estado da India, Portuguese East India Company. And what the Portuguese company began to do was, they began to appoint a viceroy or a governor to oversee their operations in India. They began to establish a governor or a viceroy to supervise their commercial activities and other activities in India. We'll come to that in some time. So we have the first factory, Calicut, 1502 ಅಲ್ಲಿ Calicut ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು first factory establish ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Vasco da Gama came again. He did not come only once, he came 3-4 times. So in his second visit, 1502, he established a factory at Calicut. Then we have Cochin in 1503, where they established their first fort. Cochin, right? And Cochin is called the Queen of the Arabian Sea. Then Kannur, 1505, Kannur, they established a second factory. Quilon or Kollam rice, Kollam. And then of course Cranganur in Kerala, also called Kodangalur, Vanchi, Muchari, Musaris, bere hesaridu. These are different names for this place called Cranganur. Old name Musaris, Muchari, Vanchi, now called Kodangalur. All on the Malabar coast. All on the Malabar coast. Did you understand? What's a factory? You see here, this is a factory. मैंने बोला ना आपको, see this is a factory. Picture आके you have godowns, trading offices, residential quarters of these Europeans, and you have a big wall here. Everybody will not be allowed, only Europeans will enter there. Okay, and they have something like a gated community. And later they began to build a fort around itself, around that. Okay, this is a trading company. Then the Portuguese, in the course of time, established factories at other places. Look here, Konkan coast, Goa, in the year 1510. Goa was under the control. Don't get busy reading there. Do one thing at a time. It will be shared with you. Okay, don't get busy reading there. When I'm explaining, look at me, because that will be shared with you, so don't worry about it. Otherwise, you will miss out things. Brain can only do one thing at a time. ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ, ಎರಡೂ ಒಂದೇ ಸತಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಡ್ರಿ, ಎರಡೂ ಮಿಸ್ ಹೊಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ. Goa was under the Adil Shah ruler of Bijapur. Bijapur was ruled by the Adil Shahis. Dynasty of which ruled Bijapur was Adil Shahis. 1510 ಅಲ್ಲಿ the Portuguese conquered Goa from the Adil Shah ruler of Bijapur. Okay, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿ, ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಕೇಳಿ. Oh my God, sorry. You have this Portuguese governor called Alfonso da Albuquerque. He was the greatest of the Portuguese governors. I'll come to that in some time. Alfonso da Albuquerque. And the person who was ruling Vijayanagara at that point in time was Krishnadevaraya, greatest of the Vijayanagara rulers, Sri Krishnadevaraya. And the Portuguese governor, Alfonso Albuquerque, wanted to enter into a treaty with Krishnadevaraya. So, in short, K.D. Raya. So, bari exam ali K.D. Raya anta, Krishnadevaraya anta bari full again. So, Albuquerque wanted to enter into a treaty with Krishnadevaraya, trading treaty. He sent an ambassador to the court of Krishnadevaraya. This was in the year 1509. Krishnadevaraya was not very sure of the intentions of the Portuguese. Who have sent them? After all, they are foreigners. How can I trust them? They are strangers. And the main enemy of Vijayanagara was Bijapur. So what if the Adil Shah ruler of Bijapur has sent them? No, he thought he had all these insecurities. So he politely spoke to the ambassador and sent him away. He is telling him that he will think about it, whether to have a treaty or not. Then what happened is, in 1510, the Portuguese conquered Goa from Bijapur. Goa was under the control of the Bijapur Sultan. So they defeated the Bijapur Sultan and conquered Goa from the Bijapur Sultan. In 1511, Alfonso the Albuquerque sent another ambassador to the court of Krishnadevaraya. His name was Friar Louis. Friar Louis. Friar Louis batane, Swami, I have been sent by the governor Albuquerque. He would like to have a treaty with you, a trading treaty. What is your opinion? Now he agreed, because he was very sure that they were not sent by the Bijapur Sultan. As a result, in 1511, there was a treaty between Krishnadevaraya, the Vijayanagara king, and the Portuguese governor Alfonso the Albuquerque. According to this treaty, Krishnadevaraya told the Portuguese, Nodaraya, you should sell Arabian war horses only to me, not to the Bijapur Sultan. You see here? You see here, this is the area which was conquered by the Portuguese. This is called Ormuz. Ormuz, the Straits of Ormuz. This area was under the control of the Portuguese. Okay? What the Portuguese used to do is, they used to procure Arabian war horses. Have you seen an Arab horse? Arab race horse. They are tall, they have long legs. Compared to the local breeds. So they run faster because they are taller. And you have an edge in warfare because you are sitting at a taller height compared to the local horse. Okay, so it gave an edge to the Vijayanagara army. So every year he told them, you should supply 10,000 war horses to Vijayanagara. So Portuguese used to procure war horses from Iran, from Saudi Arabia, and they used to ship it like this. You see, India is here, Gujarat is here. They used to come here. We have the port of Bhatkal. Karnataka Bhatkal anta one jaga ide. Mangalore, Honavar, Bhatkal. That port was under Vijayanagara. So all the Arabian war horses would be received at Bhatkal, and from Bhatkal they will be taken to Vijayanagara. And every year Portuguese used to supply how many war horses? 10,000 war horses only to Vijayanagara. That was a treaty. And Friar Louis resided in the court of Vijayanagara. In the court of Krishnadevaraya. So I'll come to that in some time, just hold on. So here in 1510, they conquered Goa. They conquered Goa. From where? From whom? From the Bijapur Sultan. In Maharashtra, they conquered Bombay in 1530. They established a factory. They established a factory at Bombay. Selset and Bassein. Bassein is called Vasai now. Vasai in Maharashtra. Then Portugal was at war with Spain. Portugal and Spain were fighting a war. Don't get busy there. Read, listen here. Portugal and Spain were fighting a war. And Portugal wanted the support of England. Portugal wanted the support of England against Spain. Aga, the Portuguese princess was offered in marriage to the King of England. Her name was Catherine Braganza. Portuguese princess Catherine Braganza was given in marriage to Charles II of England. And Charles II was given a dowry by the Portuguese. Madlu Bombay tor kaili, Portuguese kaili. Bombay na dowry kotpitru. Yarge? England Rajanage. because he married the Portuguese princess. So southern Bombay, a part of Bombay, now came into the control of the British. Did you understand? So, did you get me? So Portugal and Spain were having a fight. Portugal wanted the support of England against Spain. So Portuguese princess was married by the English king, Charles II. And as a dowry, the Portuguese offered Bombay, a part of Bombay, to the English. Now Bombay came under the control of the British that way. Right? Then you have Gujarat. They established factories at Surat in Gujarat, Diu, Daman, Bhavnagar. On the Coromandel coast, Madras coast, St. Thom near Madras. Then in Bengal, they opened a factory at Sadgaon, also known as Port Pekino. AK andre also known as Port Pekino. Chittagong, also known as Port Grande. In Karnataka, Bhatkal, Mangalore. Nodi ಎಷ್ಟು ತೀವ್ರವಾಗಿ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Then Cochin was the early capital of the Portuguese. It was replaced by Goa in 1530. Cochin was the early capital, replaced by Goa in 1530, and Goa remained the capital of the Portuguese viceroy till they left India. Okay, I'm sure many of you must have gone to Goa. Have you gone to Goa? Not yet. Nobody has gone to Goa. ನೀವು ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ? Goa has a different vibe. Okay, you have Portuguese culture there. Okay, many of the Portuguese cuisine is there, food is there. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ they were in India for many years. ಆಯಿತಾ? And a lot of foreigners come to Goa even nowadays. Okay, so they were there for more than 100 years, the Portuguese. So they have left their imprint here. Okay, right? Feni ಅಂತ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಕುಡಿಯೋ ಡ್ರಿಂಕು, ಫೆನಿ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಅದು ಪೋರ್ಚುಗೀಸ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕ್ ಅದು. And they introduced many things into India. ಏನ್ರೆ Portuguese introduced many crops into India. Potato, ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ, ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ, ಅವ್ರು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವು. ರೆಡ್ ಚಿಲ್ಲಿ, ಮೆಣಸಿನ್ಕಾಯಿ, ಲೇಡೀಸ್ ಫಿಂಗರು, ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ಯೂ, ಲೀಚಿ, ಸಪೋಟಾ, ಪ್ರಿಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ಸು, ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ಸ್ವೀಟ್ ಪೊಟ್ಯಾಟೊ, ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ, ಟೊಬ್ಯಾಕೊ, ತಂಬಾಕು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ದೇ ವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಕ್ರಾಪ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ American continent. They introduced that into India, and we are all getting benefited. ಆಯಿತಾ? ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ? ಅದು ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಏನೇನು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ. ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆಯೇನ್ರೇ? ಹಾಂ. Then, so you see, they occupied all these areas. And then, of course, you have the rest. Later, you have, except a few areas, others were taken away by the Marathas in the 18th century. And you have the decline of the Portuguese power when they were defeated by the British in the Battle of Swally. In 1612, they were defeated by the British in the Battle of Swally near Surat. 1596, ouster of the Portuguese by the Dutch from Southeast Asia. Dutch ousted them from Southeast Asia. They lost Surat to the British in 1612. In 1663, all the Portuguese forts on the Malabar coast were taken away by the Dutch from the Portuguese. Now let us look at important Portuguese governors. The first Portuguese governor was this man, Francisco de Almeida. So the Portuguese company, please understand, it was a private company. It appointed a governor. He was the first Portuguese governor, Francisco de Almeida. He built a fort at Cochin, Fort Emmanuel, also called Fort Manuel in Cochin, and made it the Portuguese headquarters. He followed a blue water policy. Blue water policy andre focusing entirely on trade. Okay, and not in evangelical activities. Evangelical activities, converting people to Christianity. He did not do that. He totally focused upon trade, and he did not try to convert people to Christianity, local people to Christianity. So I have written here, didn't interfere in local politics or evangelical activities. What happened is, since the Portuguese were there in the Indian waters, and our merchants and traders had to share in the profits with the Portuguese, there was obviously a negative response from our rulers. You have a war, a naval battle which took place. This is the Battle of Chaul, March 1508. It was a naval battle between Dom Lawrence, son of Almeida, Dom Lawrence versus Egyptian Mamluk fleet. We have the Egyptian king supporting the Gujarat Sultan. Gujarat was ruled by Bahadur Shah. king of Gujarat. We have Muslim rule in Gujarat. So we have Egyptian Mamluk fleet fighting against the Portuguese. Dom Lawrence was killed. It was a victory for the alliance. First, in the Battle of Chaul, Dom Lawrence, son of Almeida, was killed. Next year, we have three people coming together against the Portuguese again. This is the second Battle of Chaul, or the Battle of Diu, when Almeida versus alliance of rulers of Gujarat, Zamorin, and Egypt. King of Egypt, the king of Gujarat, and the king of Calicut, Zamorin, they joined together. But Almeida was able to defeat all of them. Okay, so in the first battle, he lost his son. In the second battle of Chaul, or Battle of Diu, he was able to defeat the alliance, and the Portuguese were able to cement their place in the areas where they were trading. Are you there with me? Aita, second governor was this man, Alfonso da Albuquerque. Second governor from 1509 to 1515, and the greatest of the Portuguese governors, known by different titles. Real founder of the Portuguese Empire in the east, Duke of Goa, Lion of the Sea, Portuguese Mars, Caesar of the East, title. This fellow, he had three main aims. One is to combat Islam, then to spread Christianity, and third is to establish a Portuguese Indian Empire. He wanted to establish a Portuguese Indian Empire. What Alfonso de Albuquerque did is, he wanted the population of the Portuguese to increase in India. How to increase the population of the Portuguese in India? He encouraged his soldiers and officers to marry Indian women or establish relationship with them. That is derisively called misnegation. Misnegation anta karitive, where the rulers forcibly marry or have sexual relationship with the local women of the area, only to increase the population of the Portuguese. Did you understand? So he had three main aims. Okay. Apart from that, you see, I told you he conquered Ormuz. The Portuguese conquered Ormuz, and they entered into a treaty with Krishnadevaraya. So in 1510, Goa became the headquarters of the Portuguese, and treaty with Kedi Raya of Vijayanagara, according to which Friar Louis resided at Vijayanagar, and the Portuguese were supposed to supply war horses only to Vijayanagara and not to Bijapur Sultan. Then he captured Malacca and Ceylon, Sri Lanka. He built a fort at Calicut, Alfonso de Albuquerque, and he persecuted Muslims. He was only trying to spread Christianity. So Muslims were persecuted, suppressed and oppressed. And he also abolished sati in Goa, where the widow is supposed to die in the funeral pyre of her husband. See, many of these Europeans married our girls, including the British. Because those days you have caste discrimination was there. Many poor girls, the parents of poor girls might not have the money to get them married off. Okay, or they may be she may be a child widow. She must have lost her husband when she was just 5 years old. So she has to remain a widow for the rest of her life. So some of Portuguese or the Dutch or the British came to the girl's parents and told them, they'd like to marry your daughter, and gave them money. And they married their daughter to them. But they never took them to their country. They had their wife or girlfriend there. And they'll have one girl here. When they went back to their country, they never took these girls to their country. The British, so many Britishers married Bengali girls because they were enamored of the Bengali skin, copper skin. Only in European countries, Europeans do sunbathing, they put cream and they're supposed to lie on the beach because they get freckles otherwise. Our skin atra irutte, freckles bandubidutte without a sun bath. Namdu, maintenance free. Our skin is maintenance free, Indian skin, and they are fascinated with our skin. We are fascinated with their skin, but our genana problem godu. So the Britishers, many of them, they're all youngsters like you people, 20, 22, 23, 24. They have come here to earn money. They don't want to settle down here. They're getting a huge salary those days, Britishers. So they can come here, they want to work for some time, earn a lot of money, then go back to England and settle down aramse. Okay, and when they came here, many of them married the local girls, Britishers. We have so many graves in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa of Britishers or Anglo-Indians. Father is a Christian, Britisher, mother is an Indian, and their children are born here. Okay, so like that. Okay. Even now in Goa we have, many Portuguese descendants are there in Goa. They have gone back to Portugal and they keep coming to Goa because they have their ancestors or property in Goa. Adide, right. In fact, Pondicherry, one day I was going in a bus, okay, long time back to Chennai. I'd caught a bus from Chennai to Bangalore. I had class there. So many years back this was. And I had 2-3 friends with me. No, I was not a teacher that time. I was a student. Holiday ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೆ friends ಜೊತೆ ತಿರುಗಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ. What happened is some blonde girls got into the bus, blondes. Okay, none of the people knew that they were knowing Tamil. They were actually French girls. They were from French, They were from Pondicherry. They were all looking like French people. And French ಭಾಷೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಈ ಕೆಲವರು ಪೊರ್ಕಿ ಹುಡುಗರು ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, they were teasing those girls in Tamil ಭಾಷೆ. Then when one place, the bus stopped for snacks, tea and a small break. One girl got up, she gave a mouthful in Tamil language. That fellow was shocked. Basically, they were from Pondicherry. They know lovely Tamil. And they also speak French. And you had a French settlement there, Pondicherry. That Kalki Kochrin is there, actress Kalki Kochrin. She is French Indo breed. No, ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ ಕಲ್ಕಿ ಕೊಚ್ಚಿನಿ? ಗೂಗಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತದೆ. ಆಯ್ತು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಓಕೆ. So he encourages his countrymen to marry Indian women. That's called misnegation, though this is used derisively. It also resulted in sexual exploitation of the Indian girls, but they were married. And he died in 1515. He was buried in Goa and later reburied in Portugal. Who? Alfonso the Albuquerque. Okay, right. Then we have Nino da Cunha. So he founded settlements at Hooghly in Bengal and St. Thom near Madras. And he transferred the capital from Cochin to Goa, 1530. Nino da Cunha. So initial capital was Cochin, later capital was Goa. And of course, in 1534, he acquired Diu and Basin from Bahadur Shah of Gujarat. You see, you have Humayun. Who was Humayun? Son of Babur and father of Akbar. Humayun attacked Gujarat. Keli, nan kata keli. Humayun, Mughal emperor, attacked Gujarat. Gujarat was ruled by Bahadur Shah, king of Gujarat. He wanted the support of the Portuguese against Humayun. So he gave away Basin, Vasai and Diu to the Portuguese so that he can get the support of the Portuguese against Humayun. So that way the Portuguese were able to acquire Basin and Diu in Gujarat. Are you there with me? Okay. This is the next to Martin Alfonso de Souza. Kili. See, this is a very small class. I would require a chair. 5 hours because I have a back problem. I'll request them for a chair. Kili. When Martin Alfonso de Souza was the Portuguese governor, we have a Jesuit saint. Andre Jesuit Christian saint. His name was Francis Xavier. Aur Bharatak bartara. He comes to India along with Martin Alfonso de Souza. Who? Francis Xavier. Yenak Bandru, he was one of the members of the Society of Jesuits. Society of Jesuits, SJ, Society of Jesuits was established by Ignatius Loyola, Saint Ignatius Loyola. Totally 7 people were there. Among them, one of the person was this Francis Xavier. He came to India to spread Christianity. It's a missionary religion. Like Islam and Christianity are missionary religions, evangelical religions. Andre they would like to convert people to their respective religions. So this Francis Xavier came to India, during whose period, along with Martin Alfonso de Souza, Portuguese governor. And what did he do? He stayed in Goa for about 3 years. Who? This Francis Xavier. And he converted almost 7 lakh people on the coast, both on the Coromandel coast and on the Malabar coast, the fisher community people. Fisher folk were converted to Christianity. Maravaras of Mokkaras of Malabar, Maravaras of Coromandel. They were all fisher communities. They were converted to Christianity. Yaru? It was done by Francis Xavier. Francis Xavier, after staying in Goa for 3 years, and converting 7 lakh people, he decided to go to China to spread Christianity in China. Before going away from Goa to China, he told his disciples, my last wish ಈಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಬರೀಡ್ ಇನ್ ಗೋವಾ. ನಾನು ಸತ್ತ ಮೇಲೆ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಗೋವಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೂಡ್ರಿ, ಬರಿ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಕೊನೆಯ ಆಸೆ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೊರಟೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಸ್ಯಾಟ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಶಿಪ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಈ ವೆಂಟ್ ಟು ಚೈನಾ, Francis Xavier, to spread Christianity. He never reached mainland China. One of the islands called Xinchuan in China, he reached there. Okay, he never reached the mainland of China. One of the islands of China he reached, and he died there. And he was buried there in that island. After some time, his disciples in Goa came to know Francis Xavier died in China and he has been buried there, and they wanted to fulfill his last wish. So they go to China, they exhume his body, they remove his body, and they bring it back to Goa. Initially it was kept at Malacca, Malaysia. Malacca is one of the islands in Indonesia. Java, Sumatra, Sulawesi, Borneo, Bantam, Malacca. It's one of the islands in Indonesia. It was kept there, and then it was taken to Goa. And it has been kept in a glass case in a church in Goa called Bom Jesus Basilica. This is a church. This is the church, Bom Jesus Basilica in Goa. In this church, we have the mummy of Francis Xavier. This is mummy. Francis Xavier in a shava, mummy, in a glass case. Okay, December 3rd of every year is considered to be Francis Xavier Day. It is celebrated as a state festival in Goa. December 3rd of every year. Andre in 2 days later. It is 1st of December alva. 2 days later, there is a big feast in Goa. Francis Xavier feast. Okay, he is considered to be the patron saint of Goa. Goncho Sahib, locally called Goncho Sahib anta. Okay, Goncho Sahib. Illano information ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. This is the information. ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತಗೊಂಡೆ? ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರಿಂದ ತಗೊಂಡೆ. I keep on updating my material from newspapers and magazines whenever I get some cutting edge information. Okay, so this is from Indian Express newspaper. So all the details are here. Whatever I have explained to you, it is here. Are you there with me? This is Goncho Sahib. So it's UNESCO World Heritage Site. So Bom Jesus Basilica in Goa contains the mummy of Francis Xavier. Okay, right. Then we come to the Portuguese. The Portuguese from the beginning of the 16th century, okay, until for about 100 years, they dominated the Indian Ocean. Okay, with their gunpowder navy, superior navy, gunpowder, and the use of trade with arms. Now we have something called the Karthaze system. Break ಬೇಕೇನ್ರಿ 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಲಾ? ಮುಖ ತೊಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರ್ತೀರಾ? ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಲಾ? ಎಸ್ ಆರ್ ನೋ? ಕ್ವಿಕ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ. ಏನ್ರಪ್ಪ? Now understand this. They were like rowdies, the Portuguese. You can't use the word rowdy and all that when you write answers, but I'm trying to simplify things. What did they do? What type of rowdyism they engage in? I'll tell you. Look here. This is the Indian Ocean. This is the Arabian Sea. This is the Bay of Bengal, and this is the Indian Ocean. Now, apart from so both on the west coast and east coast, the Portuguese have their factories or trading stations. Okay, now what the Portuguese used to do is, they used to tell other European countries and including Indian traders, whoever wanted to trade in the oceans around India, they are supposed to procure a pass or cartaze from the Portuguese. Pass. They are supposed to procure a pass from the Portuguese. Let us say you are all Indian traders. You have your own ships, okay, and you are also trading in the oceans around India. Here, Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean. Okay, you have your ships. You are all merchants and traders. Now, what you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to come to the Portuguese captains and custom collectors, custom house officer. I imagine I am the custom house officer. You will tell me, sir, I am so and so, I would like to trade in the oceans around India. Please give me a pass or a cartaze. I will tell you, definitely, you give me this much money, I'll give you a pass or a cartaze. So you will give me that much money, whatever I demand, and in place of that, I'll give you a pass. Okay, a letter of protection or a pass or a kartase. With that pass, you can trade. You and your ships can trade in the oceans around India. This is one way of making money for the Portuguese custom officers and custom house officers and captains. Did you understand? Now let us say you don't procure a kartase or a pass, and you trade without procuring the kartase. What will the Portuguese do? They will attack your ships. They will loot your ships. Whatever is there on the ship, they'll loot. They'll sink your ship. There's nothing but rowdyism. Okay, so they had superior ships, galleon, caravel. You don't have those type of ships, and they have gunpowder with them. They have a superior navy compared to you, so they will boss around. Okay, so they dominated the Indian Ocean like this for 100 years. Did not allow others, the Europeans, to trade, and Indian merchants and others had to procure a pass or a trading license or a kartase. Did you understand what is kartase? Artha aita? Itara madoru. Adagmele. Okay, so Arabian Sea became a Portuguese lake. Adanna sarovara ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರು, Portuguese lake ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರು, Arabian Sea. Okay, and they monopolized overseas trade of the East by establishing trading centers in India, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. Far East means Korea, Japan, and all those places, right? So they developed and retained naval superiority due to what? Due to factory system, Fetorias, due to Carthage's system. They established factories, okay, or Fetorias, and they also established the domination through Carthage's system. Clear, all of you? Okay. Then, Portuguese king made spice trade, mainly pepper trade, a royal monopoly. Nobody could trade in pepper except the Portuguese king. Innondu heltini keli. How did the Portuguese king also make money? By selling offices of captains and custom collectors. They will sell the office. Imagine I am the Portuguese king. The Portuguese had many strongholds, Mauritius, Reunion in the Indian Ocean, Goa, in other places they had their strongholds, factories. You want to become a captain. You want to be a custom house officer, customs collector. You come to me, I'm the Portuguese king. You'll tell me, I want to be a captain. I tell you, you give me this much money, I'll make you captain. You give me this much money, I'll make you custom collector, custom house officer. This is one way of making money. And nobody could trade in spices, particularly pepper, except the Portuguese king. So pepper, menasuvina vyapara, bari Portuguese king ge swimita. He was monopolizing. Did you understand? Like that. Then Portuguese introduced all these things. Nodi ಏನೇನು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ? ಟೊಬ್ಯಾಕೋ, ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ, ಸ್ವೀಟ್ ಪೊಟ್ಯಾಟೊ, ಲೇಡೀಸ್ ಫಿಂಗರ್. ಏನು ಲೇಡೀಸ್ ಫಿಂಗರ್ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ? ಬೆಂಡೆಕಾಯಿ, ಪೈನಾಪಲ್, ಪಪಾಯ, ಚಿಲ್ಲಿ, ಆರೆಂಜ್, ಆಲ್ಮಂಡ್ಸ್, ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ನಟ್ಸ್, ಕಡಲೆಕಾಯಿ, ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ ಪೆಪ್ಪರ್, ಕ್ಯಾಶು, ಸಪೋಟ, ಲೀಚಿ, ಕಾರ್ನ್. Printing press. Printing press, why? Because they used to print Bible to spread Christianity. And they also began to translate Bible into other languages, including Malayalam and Kannada. Local people don't know English or Portuguese, so they will convert it into local languages and get those Bibles printed. Okay, right. Then they built ships on modern lines using modern technology at Cochin. Christianity was spread by printing the Bible in Kannada and Malayalam. Then they gave importance to navy in sea trade. Though they introduced printing and clocks, in many areas, wherever they had trading stations. It did not find much acceptance in the mainland India, in other areas where there was no Portuguese. Only in those areas where the Portuguese had trading stations or they were trading, those technologies became very popular, like printing and clocks. Not in the other parts of India. And that is very surprising as to why it did not become popular. Okay, so how was the Portuguese administration like? You have a viceroy or a governor as the head. Okay, below the viceroy or the governor, you have a secretary and then a council. This was an officer, Vedor da Fazenda. He was responsible for revenue, cargo and dispatch of fleets. Okay, Vedor da Fazenda. Captains were responsible for fortresses from Africa to China. They looked after the forts. Captains. Factors assisted captains. This is how the Portuguese administration was. Artha clear? What are the reasons for the decline of the Portuguese power? One is you have the Portuguese policy of forcible conversions. They're converting people to Christianity and they were persecuting Muslims. The Muslims did not like it. Mughals were ruling India and they were very, very powerful. So here the Portuguese were thrown out of Hooghly in Bengal in 1632. They got into conflict with the Mughals and they were thrown out of Hooghly in Bengal by the Mughals. Then second is the Spanish king Philip II conquered Portugal in 1581. Spain conquered Portugal. Okay, hello, are you there with me? Spain conquered Portugal in 1581 and the Spanish king Philip II was more interested in trading with Brazil than India. He was more interested in trading with Brazil than India. As a result, the Portuguese became weak, okay, because he began to focus more upon Brazil, the Spanish king who had conquered Portugal. Number two. Then we have conflict with the English. The British came later. They were the third to come to India. And in two naval battles, the British defeated the Portuguese. One at Bombay and the other at Swally near Surat. So in two naval battles, the British defeated the Portuguese. Remember those years. Then we have Ormuz occupied by the English in 1622. I showed you Ormuz, no, where they used to get our horses from. That area was occupied by the British. Then we have the Dutch. They had conflict with the Dutch. Dutch conquered Indonesia from the Portuguese. Indonesia was under the Portuguese first. And please understand, Indonesia has more spices than India. The Portuguese came to know about this. So they had gone and occupied Indonesia. The Dutch came there, kicked the Portuguese out of Indonesia. The Portuguese had also occupied Ceylon, Sri Lanka. The Dutch came and kicked them out of Sri Lanka. Okay, so they conquered Ceylon in 1658, the Dutch from the Portuguese. Then they had conflict with the Marathas. We have the Peshwa Bajirao I. He conquered Salsette and Basin from the Portuguese in 1739. Peshwa Bajirao I. You must have seen this movie, Bajirao Mastani. One Bajirao. Peshwa Bajirao. Bajirao Balal. So he was a great warrior. I'll talk about him later. He defeated the Portuguese and conquered Salsette and Basin in 1739. So one by one, you see, they began to lose their positions to various powers. Are you there with me? Then you have Indian merchants. They began to encourage other Europeans in order to break the monopoly of the Portuguese. Portuguese used to interfere in their internal affairs of local rulers. They used to engage in forcible conversions. They used to engage in cartel system, rowdyism. Indian traders were at a loss. When the Dutch and the British came, they began to support the Dutch and the British so that they can break the monopoly of the Portuguese. And Indian traders also directly wanted to trade with Europe, bypassing the Portuguese. That's another reason. Artha all of you. Then they also followed unpopular policies. We have the Firangis or the sea pirates. Sea pirates or Firangis were encouraged by the Portuguese to loot non-Portuguese ships. Nam ship bitiputtu bakirtella loot madri anta. They encourage the piracy. Pirates on the seas. They will tell the pirates, you don't touch Portuguese ships, you loot other ships. So they encourage the pirates. Then issue of Carthages. And of course, policy of religious persecution. They began to persecute people who were not Christians and forcibly convert people to Christianity. That also made them unpopular. Okay, so the choice was between Christianity and the sword. Either you convert yourself to Christianity or you die by the sword. They did not like it, others. And of course, Portugal was incapable of maintaining control for a prolonged period of time because her own population was less, less than 1 million in those days, the population of Portugal. Secondly, its court was autocratic and decadent. You had a very autocratic monarchy in Portugal, and it was still backward looking in its thoughts. Decadent means merchants enjoyed less power compared to the landed aristocracy. The landlords in Portugal were much more stronger than the merchants. Okay, and lastly, it lagged behind in the development of shipping. Because of all these reasons, the Portuguese also lost out. Right? So despite all their barbaric behavior, they were able to outlast. They lasted for more than 100 years for these reasons. One is they enjoyed control of the high seas. Their officers and soldiers were very, very disciplined. And they did not have to fight the Mughals, who were very powerful in the north. But in the south, Mughals did not have representation. Mughals did not, you have the Bahmani Sultans in the south. The Mughals were not there in the south. So that was the reason why they were able to last for a longer time in the south. Okay. Then Portuguese and Spanish dominance was challenged later by the Dutch and the Britishers. They came late, the Dutch and the Britishers. Once the Dutch and the Britishers came, and gradually the Portuguese and the Spanish lost out. Right? And then the English also defeated the Spanish fleet called the Armada. Armada is a fleet of ships. So the British Navy destroyed the Spanish Armada in 1588. Portuguese was conquered by Spain. Spain was defeated by England. Portuguese were conquered by the Spanish. Later the Spanish were defeated by the Britishers. And the Britishers opened the Cape Route to everybody. Iವರು ರೌಡಿಸಮ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು they had dominated the Cape Route, the Portuguese. Dutch came and defeated the Portuguese, and they also dominated the Cape Route. But later the British came and defeated the Dutch as well as the Spanish and opened the Cape Route to everybody. Okay, right. So the question is, why did Indian powers permit the domination of the Indian Ocean by the Portuguese for more than a century? These are the Portuguese ships. Caravel, galleon, etc. Right? So why did the Indian powers permit the domination of the Indian Ocean by the Portuguese for more than a century? So one is, of course, you see, Portuguese domination was ended not by the Asian powers, but by the Dutch and the British. You see, when you compare the caravel and the galleon, you have the Indo-Arab boom and the Chinese junk. They were also equally good ships. You see here? This is the Indo-Arab boom. Boom andre ship. Indo-Arab boom. Okay, and this is the Chinese junk. So in terms of tonnage capacity, carrying capacity, in terms of sailing in the deep oceans, they were also equally capable. Where the caravel and the galleon had an advantage was in its maneuverability. They could maneuver quickly. Whereas the Indian boom had a huge and a clumsy sail. The sail was very, very big. It was difficult to maneuver. Okay, so that's where they lost. See, in their strength, holding capacity for tonnage and Latin or triangular sail, they were equally capable. The Indian boom, Indo-Arab boom, and the Chinese junk. But then they had they were very slow and clumsy because of their heavy sails. So Portuguese had the advantage of maneuverability. And the Portuguese ships had very strong hulls. Very strong hull. Hull is the lower part of the ship, isn't it? That was much stronger. So when you have cannon fire, they were able to withstand the cannon fire load in a much better manner, more effective manner. That's another reason. But despite all these advantages, you see, what was the reason why the Portuguese were able to last for 100 years? One is, you see, Indians were used to fighting pirates. Okay, without the backing of their local rulers, they were able to handle the pirates, but they did not have the stomach to fight against these Europeans in the high oceans. All of you? If somewhere you lost. Yes, sir. So, you see, the Indian rulers could fight the pirates in the high oceans, but they could not fight the Europeans like the Portuguese on the high seas. And the second is, they did not have the military or technological superiority like the Portuguese had. Third is, you see, the Portuguese dominated the oceans, and the Indian rulers, they understood that even if they don't take on the Portuguese, they can still hope to control the mainland. Portuguese were not challenging the European Indian rulers on the mainland. On the oceans, they were dominating. So Indians did not bother. Indian rulers did not bother because they lacked a very strong navy, like the Portuguese. Mughals had a navy, but it was not strong enough to challenge the Portuguese. So because of these reasons, the Portuguese were able to last for about 100 years in the in the oceans around India. Right? Clear, all of you? This is about Portuguese. You see, I picked up a picture straight in the city of Goa between 1579 and 1592. This is how it looked like during the Portuguese times, Goa. Right? Estado Portuguese da India. So you have various reasons for the decline of the Portuguese. Their conflict with the Mughals, their conflict with the Dutch, their conflict with the English, their own unpopular policies, including Carthage system, forcible conversions. Okay, all these things resulted in the Portuguese losing their domination first to the Dutch and later to the British. Clear? Okay, then we come to the second Europeans to come to India, the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch East India Company. So the second to come to India by the Dutch or the Netherlands. You see here, we have this man who was an adventurer, a Christian adventurer who came to India. He was the first Dutchman to come to India. On his row, Van Huygen van Linschoten Nanta. Van Huygen van Linschoten. This Linschoten came and traveled around India. Okay, and he understood how rich this part of the world is, how rich the East was, India and the surrounding areas. He writes a travelogue documenting the immense riches of India and the countries in this part of the world. And the name of the travelogue was Itinerario anta. So he wrote that book documenting the immense riches of India, and when he published that book, the Dutch people read this book, and that resulted in the Dutch wanting to come and personally check out for themselves. This started the Dutch endeavor towards India. Hello? Yes or no? ಇವನು ಬಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬರೀತಾನೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ರಿಚ್ ಇದೆ India, how rich India is and the East Indies is. And once the Dutch people read this book, they were inclined to come to India and check out for themselves. We have in the year 1602 a private company which was established by the Netherlands, by the entrepreneurs of Netherlands. Okay, this is the United East India Company, or VOC, Virangde Oostindische Company anta. Virangde Oostindische Company. Okay, it was formed by a charter of the Dutch Parliament with powers to make wars, conclude treaties, acquire territories and build fortresses. This company could make war, conclude treaties, acquire territories and build forts. And it was also called VOC, in short called VOC, also called Jan Company, Janco, after John von Linschoten. Okay. Now, this was a mega corporation with quasi-governmental powers, and the Dutch state did not have any role in the business. It did not have an elaborate governance system also. It did not appoint any governors, and the government did not interfere in its working, in the working of this company. Are you there with me, all of you? Okay. So let us look at the important Dutch settlements, Dutch factories. On the east coast, they had their representation in the court of the Sultan of Golconda. Now look, nodi, artha madkoli. Why did the Dutch come to India? The reason is, the Dutch came to India thinking that India had a lot of spices. That's why they came to India, in order to participate in the spice trade with India and make profits. Once they came to India, they realized that Indonesia has more spices than India. Okay, Indonesia has more spices than India. So they went and conquered Indonesia from the Portuguese. But having come to India, they realized that India has a lot of cotton textiles. It was the Dutch who began triangular trade between India, Indonesia and Europe. And this triangular trade was learned by the British from the Dutch. ಪುನಃ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಕೇಳಿ. Why did the Dutch come to India? To trade in spices, thinking that India has a lot of spices. But they soon realized that which country has more spices than India? Indonesia. So they went and conquered Indonesia from the Portuguese. Okay. Now having come to India, they did not want to let it go waste. So what they did is, they understood that India has lot of cotton textiles. Look here, all of you. So this is the east coast of Andhra. This is the east coast of Andhra Pradesh. You had plenty of cotton textiles here. Cotton was grown here. Cotton textiles. Cotton and cotton textiles were grown and manufactured here. Okay, so having come to India, what they did is, they began to procure cotton textiles at a very cheap price from the east coast of India. And this area was ruled by the Sultan of Golconda. The Sultan of Golconda was ruling this part of the country. So they had their representative in the court of the Sultan of Golconda, the Dutch. Allon adhikarina bitru. In the court of the Sultan of Golconda, there was a Dutch officer there. Now the Dutch were the ones who began triangular trade between India, Indonesia and Europe. You see here, this is India, this is Indonesia, and this is Europe. What they would do is, they will procure cotton textiles from India, okay? They will take it to Indonesia. This is number one. They will take it to Indonesia. Indonesia had a lot of what? Spices. They will exchange cotton textiles for spices. They will give cotton textiles to the Indonesians, and they will exchange it for spices and take the spices directly to Europe and make a huge amount of profit. Okay, and from Europe they will bring miscellaneous goods to India. This is the triangular trade which was begun by the Dutch between India, Indonesia and Europe. Okay. And this was learned by the Britishers from the Dutch when they began to do this in America. British began to do that in America, and they had learned this from the Dutch. Now, so they had the representation at the court of the Sultan of Golconda. In 1605, they established their first factory at Masulipattnam in the Andhra coast. This was the first Dutch factory. Pulicat was their initial headquarters in Andhra Pradesh. Pulicat, initial headquarters. And they also controlled the Malabar coast briefly, Cochin, and the Coromandel coast, Golconda, Kakinada, Pulicat, Nagapattinam. Also established trading station in Travancore, that is in Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram, Travancore, Tamil Nadu, as well as Rajshahi, Murshidabad, in Bengal, Patna in Bihar, Balasore in Orissa, and in Myanmar, in Burma, they had these areas, Awa, Arakan and Siriam. So they had their trading stations or factories in all these places, the Dutch. Okay, and they replaced the Portuguese as the most dominant power in the East. They weakened the Portuguese, the Dutch. No, then they established factories at Surat in 1616, Bhimunipatnam in Andhra Pradesh, Bimlipatnam, Karaikal in Tamil Nadu, Chinsura and Pipri in Bengal, Kasim Bazar, Baranagar, Patna, Balasore in Orissa, Cochin, western coast Vengurla in Maharashtra, near Goa, Vengurla. And then captured Ceylon from the Portuguese in 1658. They conquered Sri Lanka from the Portuguese, the Dutch. Okay, and Ceylon was of course lost by in the Congress of Vienna in 1815. When I come to world history, I'll talk about it. So Ceylon was captured by the Dutch from the Portuguese, but they lost it later to the English. Okay, Nagapattinam replaced Pulicat as their headquarters. Initial headquarters was Pulicat, later Nagapattinam, again on the Andhra coast, Nagapattinam. And I have told you about triangular trade. Okay? Aitala. Anglo-Dutch rivalry, you see, you have the British and the Dutch rivalry. What happened is they monopolized trade with Indonesia. They did not allow any European country to come to Indonesia, the Dutch. So in 1620s, they refused all countries access to the Indonesian spice islands. Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Batavia, Sulawesi, Moluccas, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು spice islands ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Then what happened is when the British tried to go to Indonesia to participate in the spice trade there, the Dutch massacred the English at a place called Amboina. So this is called 1623 at Amboina, Indonesia. The Dutch massacred the British and did not allow the British to come to Indonesia. And later these two countries in 1667 they signed a treaty wherein the British kept their hands off Indonesia and the Dutch kept their hands off India, and they began to focus only on Indonesia. Okay, then later what happened is the British took revenge against the Dutch in Bengal, when in the Battle of Chinsura or Bedera, what the Dutch had done to the British in Indonesia, the English did to the Dutch in India. In the Battle of Bedera, you see here, in the Battle of Bedera, okay, near Hooghly, you have the Dutch massacred by the British. When I come to British conquest of Bengal, I'll talk about it. British conquest of Bengal ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಾಗ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ ಆಯ್ತಾ. So Dutch were shown their place by the British in India, and in 1595 they were thrown out of India by the British. So you see here 1759 Battle of Bedera. In last two ಅಕ್ಷರಗಳನ್ನು ಲೆಟರ್ಸ್ನ ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಮಾಡಿ 1795. In 1795 they were expelled from India by the British. Okay, and they began to focus mostly on on Indonesia, Dutch East Indies. Okay, and they were mostly interested in trade, black pepper and spices. Now what is the reason for the success of the Dutch? Good educational system, development in science and technology, advancement in that. Then they had acquired nautical information from the Portuguese, whatever knowledge of the seas, etc. Okay, they got knowledge from the Portuguese. Existence of a huge merchant marine, merchant ships, merchant navy, and of course easy access for sufficient wood for shipbuilding. There are plenty of wood for shipbuilding. That is the reason for the success of the Dutch. Aita? Clearer? Right? Important Dutch fortifications, nodi. Fort Gustavus. Okay, in Bengal, named after Governor General Gustav Willem van Imhoff. They built a fort there, Gustavus in Bengal. Fort David at Tenganapatnam near Chennai. Tengapatnam, Fort Geldria, Fort David. Then Fort Geldria or Pulicat Fort in Andhra Pradesh. These are the important forts built by the Dutch. Okay, right. Without Dutch East India Company. Then we come to the British. Break ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿನ್ರಿ. In the break, eat, keep some chocolates with you. That will stimulate the brain. What happens is if the blood sugar level comes down, you feel a little sleepy. So you just pop a chocolate. Okay? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ ತಂದು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. Okay, just pop some chocolate, it will stimulate your brain. Secondly, keep some coffee or tea in the class in a flask. Have a sip of cup of coffee. I will not object. Please have that. Biscuit ತಿನ್ನಂಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ತಿನ್ರಿ. I want you to be alert. Okay, whole idea is to be alert. So have some biscuit or something like that. Okay, something which will release sugar very slowly. Okay, some like dry fruit laddu. Okay, or ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ತಿನ್ರಿ. ಆಯ್ತಲ್ರಿ? ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? Yes or no? If you depend on this, more than sufficient. You just don't need to read anything beyond this. But I would still say read one textbook. I have put all the information in my PPT. But for safety purpose, read at least 1 or 2 books. Okay, the third to come to India were the English. I have another 15 minutes to go. I'm continuing. Okay. So the third to come to India were the Britishers. First to come to India were the Portuguese. Second to come to India were the Dutch. Third, English. Fourth, Danes. Fifth, French. Okay, now look here. So here you have first person to come to India, first Britisher to come to India was Father Thomas Stevens ಅಂತ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಬಂದವನು 1579. He was the first Englishman to come to India by the Cape of Good Hope. He arrived in Goa 1579. Mughals were ruling India. Okay, Mughals. Akbar was the Mughal emperor. Akbar time ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ Father Thomas Stevens. In 1590s, Ralph Fitch came to India, again during the time of Akbar, 1590s. Then in 1599, John Mildenhall came by the overland route. Overland route kartane, England in the, imagine he is coming by the overland route from England. John Mildenhall. Then we have on December the 31st, 1600, a group of English merchants called Merchant Adventures. They decided to open a company, a trading company, and they applied for a permission or a charter from Queen Victoria, and she gave permission to this company to trade with India and the East Indies for a period of 15 years. 15 varsha you can trade with India and the East Indies, and the name of this company was the Governor and Company of Merchants of London, trading into the East Indies. East Indies means, I put here, see, East Indies means South, Southeast and East Asia. South, Southeast and East Asia. So a group of merchants called Merchant Adventures formed a new trading company under a charter issued by Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth. Charter means permission to trade, license. Okay, I'm sorry, I said Queen Victoria, no? Queen Elizabeth. Huh? So Queen Elizabeth gives them the permission, Queen Elizabeth. And then what happened is, you see, for how many years this company could trade? Now please understand, this was the only British company which was given the permission to trade with India and the East Indies. There were other companies who wanted to trade, but they were not given permission. And what were they interested in? The Portuguese were interested in what? Spices, particularly pepper. The Dutch were interested in cotton textiles. Initially spices, but then cotton textiles. The British were interested in all these things. Cotton, calico, muslin. Cotton andre calico mattu muslin anta. Thin variety. And the Britishers developed a fancy for wearing Indian cotton textiles. Cotton is very skin friendly. It breathes. So everything cotton. And they will get cotton, raw cotton from America and India, and they'll ship it to England and convert it into finished products. England began to experience industrial revolution. Okay, in some time, another 100 years. By 1750, she was experiencing industrial revolution. After 150 years. So the import of Indian cotton and American cotton increased. We'll come to that. Cotton textiles. Amale silk. Indigo is used to color your clothes. Now, whatever clothes we are wearing is chemical dye. Chemicals are used to make the color. Those days chemical dye was not there. Indigo was used to color the clothes, and there was a lot of demand for indigo in the international market. So they used to procure indigo. Then sugar. Then a mineral called saltpetre. Saltpetre, please understand, gunpowder khali agoytu ankolе. Andre, you have run out of gunpowder. Instead of gunpowder, you can use saltpetre. It's a mineral. It is also used in plant as a plant chemical. But those days it was used mostly for in place of gunpowder, saltpetre. So there was a lot of demand for saltpetre. And then tea and opium. Opium is brown sugar, which was cultivated in Bengal. Poppy, you have poppy plant, and from poppy plant, when you process it, you get opium. Adanna cultivate ಮಾಡೋರು. ಯಾರು Britishers. So here what happened is, the British decided to open a factory at Surat. Surat is in Gujarat. And the Mughal emperor was Jahangir, son of Akbar. Are you there with me? So what happened is, you have the Britishers sending an officer called Captain Hawkins to the court of Jahangir. Captain Nane Jahangir ankole. Hawkins comes to my court and he asked permission to open a trading factory or a factory in my empire. There was a very influential Portuguese lobby in the court of Jahangir. Influential Portuguese lobby. They put pressure on Jahangir. Don't give them permission, sir, to start factories in India, in your empire. And Jahangir, bowing down to the pressure exerted by the Portuguese lobby, refused permission to the Britishers. But in two naval battles later, between 1611 and 1615, the Portuguese were defeated by the Britishers. One at Swally and earlier at Bombay. So at Bombay and Swally they were defeated. And then we have a person called Thomas Roe. He was sent as an ambassador to the court of Jahangir by the King of England, James I. So King of England, James I, sends a fellow called Thomas Roe to the court of Jahangir, asking for trading concessions. And now once the British had defeated the Portuguese, he allowed them to open a factory at Surat. And then also when Thomas Roe came to the court of Jahangir, they were allowed to open factories at Agra, Ahmedabad and Broch. So they first opened the first factory at Surat, and then they established factories at Agra, Ahmedabad and Broch. And then we look at important factories on the west coast, on the Coromandel coast, on the east coast, etc., etc. We'll talk about it. Okay, look here. So, popularly called English East India Company. So, you have Captain Hawkins coming to the court of Jahangir in 1608. Okay, and due to a Portuguese pressure at the court, they were denied permission to trade. Then you have a fresh charter. I forgot to tell you this. So here, when did Queen Elizabeth give them a charter? 1600 for 15 years. That means 1600 to 1615. 15 ವರ್ಷ andre. Even before those 15 years had lapsed, we have another king of England, monarch by name James I. He issued a fresh charter in the year 1609, giving them monopoly for an indefinite period of time. Elizabeth gave a time slot of 15 years. James first gave a charter to the company, license to trade, to the same company, Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading into the East Indies, for an indefinite period of time. He did not say 15 years. He never mentioned that. Okay, are they with me? And this monopoly continued till 1813. East India Company was the only company which was allowed to trade with India and the East Indies for an indefinite period of time. And in 1813, this monopoly ended, when other companies were also allowed to trade with India and the East. Are they with me? Right. So, in two naval battles, the Portuguese were defeated by the British. One at Bombay, Captain Middleton defeated the Portuguese at Bombay, and Captain Best defeated the Portuguese at Swally near Surat. And in 1613, Jahangir issued a Farman. Farman means royal proclamation, where they were allowed to start a factory at Surat under Thomas Aldworth. They established a factory there and posted an ambassador to the Mughal court. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe came to the court of Jahangir as ambassador of James I. And they were allowed to start factories at these places: Agra, Ahmedabad and Bharuch in Gujarat. Agra, Ahmedabad and Bharuch in Gujarat. Subsequently, they established factories at Calcutta, Madras and Bombay. Okay, right. Now look at the factories established with the British on the west coast. On the west coast, they established factories at these places: Agra, Ahmedabad, Baroda and Broch. Agra, Ahmedabad in Gujarat, Baroda is again in Gujarat, and Broch in Gujarat. Then in 1668, Bombay was acquired by the British from the Portuguese on lease. Bombay was acquired by the company from Charles II on lease for $10. I told you, Charles II married Catherine Braganza of the Portuguese princess. Portugal was going to war, fighting a war with Spain. And Portugal wanted the support of England against Spain. So what happened? They gave their princess in marriage to the English king, Charles II. An English king, Charles II, was given Bombay as a dowry by the Portuguese king, because his sister was married by Charles II. And as a result, this Charles II gave away Bombay for an annual rental of 10 pounds. So now the company came to possess Bombay. Okay. Gerald Angier was the first governor of Bombay and founder of the Bombay city. Gerald Angier. In 1687, Bombay replaced Surat as the headquarters on the west coast. All the factories on the west coast, now headquarters was Bombay instead of Surat. Charles Boone was the one who built the Bombay fort. Governor built the Bombay fort. Charles Boone, 1720 only. This part you understood, no? Charles II had got Bombay as dowry from Portuguese king because he had married the Portuguese king's sister. And now the company came to acquire Bombay for an annual rental of 10 pounds. For 10 pounds annual rental, they came to acquire Bombay. Okay. Then, you look at the factories on the Coromandel coast. Coromandel ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬಂದು ಗೊತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಹೆಸರು? Shall I tell you? I'll tell you, wait. Do you know how the word Coromandel came? We have the great Cholas, imperial Cholas. When you do medieval India, the teacher will tell you. Imperial Cholas. We have great kings like Rajaraja Chola, Rajendra Chola. Rajaraja conquered northern Sri Lanka. And in 1009 AD, he built the tallest temple in medieval India. The Brihadishwara temple at Tanjore, Tanjore. 217 ಅಡಿ ಎತ್ತರ ಇದು. 217 feet height. 217 feet in height. Brihadishwara Shiva temple. Yaro? Rajaraja Chola. And his son was Rajendra, who conquered North India, defeated Mahipala of Bengal, and he also conquered Southeast Asia. Kadaramantak, Indonesia, southern Thailand, Cambodia, Malaya, Malaysia was conquered by Rajendra Chola with the navy. And the Cholas, though ruled directly South India, parts of South India, they are called imperial. Imperial andre no? Projection of political power far beyond its immediate geographical confines. That's the meaning of imperialism. Projection of political power far beyond immediate geographical confines. Though they were ruling this part of India, their power was felt throughout South India. And they conquered Sri Lanka, Maldives, Lakshadweep, and parts of Southeast Asia. And they dominated Southeast Asia for 100 years. America is considered to be an imperial power. America, Kopa Bandra, iಡೀ world narudutta. You understand? Who becomes the president of America? The presidential elections are looked up with interest by everybody, because whoever becomes the president of America, his foreign policy determines the relations with various countries. Okay, for example, Trump is now siding Pakistan instead of India. After Modi said no, he was not responsible for the truce between India and Pakistan after Operation Sindoor. Anyway, we'll come back here. Now that's why they are called imperial. So the power of the Cholas was felt, and they had a very powerful navy, the Cholas. They dominated this area from Kanyakumari to the Bay of Bengal. And this area came to be called Cholamandalam. In English, it is called Coromandel. Cholamandalam came to be called Coromandel from that word. Do you understand? So that's all. So here you see the British, so southeast coast, Masulipattnam, first eastern trading station, eastern settlement was Masulipattnam, Machilipatnam in the Andhra coast. 1626, Armagaon near Pulicat. Then they acquired Madras. A person called Francis Day acquired Madras from a person called D.V. Naidu. I'll stop here. I have almost run out of time. I'll stop here. Now, how was the session? So, I'll continue from here tomorrow. Okay, this will be shared with you, don't worry. So tomorrow I'll finish this European companies. We'll look at the questions asked from this topic by UPSC, previous year questions. Then we'll go to other segments like Carnatic Wars, British conquest of India, later Mughals, British conquest of Bengal, Plassey, Buxar, dual system of government. Then we'll go to Mysore, Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, Anglo-Maratha Wars, Anglo-Mysore Wars. Okay, all those things we'll do. Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow, same time. Okay, so you come prepared with some chocolates from energy bar, Tagali energy bar. I have also kept energy bar. Okay, that will keep you alert and not sleepy. And have good breakfast and come. In this cold weather, I'll tell you, that is a mantra for being alert. Don't come to class on an empty stomach. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿನ್ನಿರಿ, ಏನೋ ಆಯಿತಾ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕಾಫಿ ಗಿಫಿ ಕುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬನ್ನಿರಿ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೇನೋ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು. ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅಲರ್ಟ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಈಟ್. And in the classroom also you can bring your coffee, biscuits, etc. and eat. No problem. Okay? And have some chocolates also. So prepare for all those things and come. ಹಂಗೆ ಖಾಲಿ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಬಂದು ನಿದ್ದೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಏನೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾ, I'll tell you what is the scientific reason behind it. When did you have your lunch, dinner last night? 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Some people have it at 10 o'clock. Some people maybe 11 o'clock. But generally let us say between 8 to 10 you have your breakfast, lunch and dinner ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. When will you have your breakfast generally? 8 o'clock. That will be about 12 hours gap. Some people might have it at 10 o'clock. So that will be more than 12 hours gap. So what happens is the sugar level in your body will come down, in your brain will come down. Okay, this is because everything has been broken down. Sugar level comes down. When sugar level comes down, you are feeling sleepy. ನಿದ್ದೆ ಬರಂಗಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay. When you are feeling sleepy, you cannot focus. Let us say you have a good breakfast, so the sugar level is restored. I am not saying you are diabetic patients. I am also not. Okay, but sugar level is restored. You are alert. And when 2 hours agmale, it breaks down. 2.5 hours agmale, the food is broken down by the blood. ಇನ್ನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಶುಗರ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್. ಆವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ ಆಗೋಲ್ಲ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಬಾರ್ ತಿನ್ನಿ, ಅಗೇನ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ರೆಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯುವರ್ ಅಲರ್ಟ್. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ರೀಸನ್. ಡಿಡ್ ಯು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್? Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow. Carry on. We lost about 40 minutes today, but I was also helpless because of some technical issue. Okay, fine. We'll meet tomorrow. Carry on. Thank you. So be on time. ಏನು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಈಗ? ವೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಯು ಪೀಪಲ್ ಫ್ರಮ್? ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ಮಚ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಯು ಪೀಪಲ್. ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೀವು? ವೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ ಫ್ರಮ್? ನೀವು ಹಾಂ, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಯು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್? ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಯು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್? ಎಲ್ಲ ಯಾವ ಕಾಲೇಜ್? ಹೌದಾ? ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮಂತ್ ಅಲಮ್ನಿ ಮೀಟ್ ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್. ಹಾಂ, ಹೌದಾ? ನಾನು ಮೈಸೂರು ಅವರಿಂದ ಕ್ರಿಕೆಟ್ ಟೀಮ್, ಫುಟ್ಬಾಲ್ ಟೀಮ್, ಕ್ರೀಡೆಗೆ ರಾಹುಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ? ವಿಜಯ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಇವತ್ತು ಒನ್ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದರು. ಆ ಕಡೆ ಆರ್ ವಿಜಯ್, ಭರದ್ವಾಜ್, ಕ್ರಿಕೆಟರ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಅವಾಗ ಹಿಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಖುಷಿ ಸಾಕು, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ ಮುಂಚೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ. ಆಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಆಂಡ್ರೋಸ್ ವಿಂಟೋ he was a political scientist. I was HEP. I was HEP department. And our building was on the residency road. It's now the law of the management of the class. They have opened, they started the administrative block. You are from Joseph also here. Tell me Joseph today. What are the plan today? Nemo, you are from what is that plan? You know? Engineering from Guruvata. ಯಾವ branch? Electronics. MSc in chemistry. Where are you from? Chamanagala, Mysore. ನೀವು MBA Finance. ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ? ಹಾಂ. Where are you from? But you went to Maharashtra? Online. Okay. I thought you were in Maharashtra. I'm a half Maharashtra. Marathi बोलते हैं नहीं? ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ? ತುಮಕೂರಿಂದ. ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಓದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿರೋದು PhD-ಗೆ. ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ? ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಂದ. ಇನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ? 30 ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ? 30 ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರ್ಕೋತಾರಾ? ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ
ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ.
ಹೌದಾ? ಓಕೆ 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 ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಲೈಕ್ ಮೈ ಸೆಷನ್? ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಸುಸೈಡ್ ಬೇಡ. ಓಕೆ. Any feedback I can. Okay. Anything ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳಿ. Accordingly, I will make changes to my lecture. That will be shared with you. Please share. Okay. Have a good day. ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Mostly hungry. I passed out in 1993. Middle science. Kurgu. ಅವ್ರು ರಿಟೈರ್ ಆದ್ರಂತಲ್ಲ ಹೋದ ವರ್ಷ. ಅವರು ಆವಾಗ ಇವಾಗ ಜಾನ್ಸನ್ ಈ ಮೇಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೆಬ್ಯೂ ಅವಾಗ
Your teaching style actually match.
ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ನೀನು ಸೋಮಯ್ಯ ಸರ್ ಥರ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಸೋಮಯ್ಯ ಸರ್ ಅದೇ ಥರ ಒಂದ್ಸತಿ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Bold voice ಇರುತ್ತೆ.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Take care. You have a good day. ಇವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ? ಊರು ಕೊಟ್ಟವ್ರ ಸರ್? ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತವ್ರೆ? ತುಂಬ ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್? ಹ್ಞೂ
ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರು. ಬಟ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್
ಏನಪ್ಪ?
ಕಾಮಿಡಿನೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಓಕೆ.